Good evening. It is Monday, January 26, 2026 at 5 o'clock, and I'd like to call this Committee of the Whole, the Lansing City Council, to order and ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Councilmember Carter?
Here.
Councilmember Garza?
Here.
Councilmember Hussein?
Here.
Councilmember Cost?
Present.
Councilmember Martinez?
Here.
Councilmember Navarez Martinez?
Here.
Councilmember Peli Vanoglu?
Present.
Councilmember Spatafor?
Present.
All members present.
Thank you. And we are on to the minutes of January 12th, 2026. Vice President Palavanoglu.
Thank you, President Spatafor. I actually moved to correct the minutes from January 12th, 2026 in the call to order. It indicates that City Clerk Swope called the meeting to order, and that was actually yourself, President Spatafor.
Take that as a friendly amendment. Any other amendments to the minutes? All right, that is the motion from Vice President Palavanoglu. All those in favor of the amended minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are to the public comment portion of our agenda. Anyone wishing to speak to the committee will have 3 minutes to do so. Please step up to the podium and state your name for the record, and the timer will start when you begin your comments. Sir, can I ask you to pause just a minute? City TV, can you check the mics to make sure that the microphone at the podium is on? They're having trouble hearing in the back. Oh, it's not plugged in. That'll do it.
It's on the box on front of the half wall. It's the box on the floor in front of the half wall.
Jack's coming down. That's going to be our one thing tonight. It's going to be perfect the rest of the evening. Mr. Keck, please continue.
Hear me now?
Nope.
I can talk.
Try it now. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
My name's Chris Keck. I'm the Assistant Business Manager for the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 333, also the President of the Greater Lansing Building Trades Council. I wanted to congratulate all of our new elected city council members, and congratulations to those who were reelected. I'm here to speak this afternoon in favor of the sale of the properties on Cedar Street and Larch and the conditional rezoning for the proposed $120 million deep green data center project. This will be a transformational project for our city. As all of you know, anytime you use data for streaming services, gaming, pictures and videos, going to the doctor's office, and even education, we use data. And the need for data centers is growing because of our need for data when we want it. But tonight I want to speak about jobs. This project not only will create the construction jobs, which, by the way, projects like these are not only a job, but a pathway to a career in the building trades, not just a temporary construction job like many project them to be. There are also the jobs that last years after the project is built in servicing the facility and the equipment inside. There are permanent jobs at the facility that we absolutely should take into consideration, from security to high-tech careers as well. The economic impact goes a lot further than the expanded tax revenue, the high-skilled jobs, and investment in our city. But when a project like this is under construction, the workers spend their money in the city where they make it. These impacts are real. So I'm here this afternoon to say that the Lansing Building Trades and the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 333 are in favor of this project. Ask that you approve the sale of these properties to be used for something transformational for our city, not just empty parking lots. Thank you for your time and all your work on this issue.
Thank you.
name's Todd McCaslin. I'm with the Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters. Speaking in support today for the Deep Green Data Center project, representing roughly 1,500 member carpenters and their families. A project like this generates prosperity, carries them through seasons of construction that are life-changing and career-generating. We run training centers and apprenticeship programs. Many of our young carpenters get their start on projects that are supported like this. So generational impact, we encourage the support for this project in any way possible to see this thing to fruition. Carpenters would provide that support. Thank you.
My name is Govinda Rajan Murali. I go by the name Murali. I am the founder of Voices of Ingham Human Library. We allow the people to share their stories to bridge the gap and remove the stereotypes. I'm also in the favor of this project. I'm the resident of Okemos for the last 27 years since 1998. My very first project happened to be with the Board of Water and Light. I support this project for many different reasons, but I also have a number of questions. I have given the questionnaires to all of these people and many of the people over here. I'm not going to repeat those questions because it's not going to be within the 3 minutes. And let me just read only the high-level points of the questions. So grid management and priority, and this is targeted for the BWL to answer this. And the other one is the digital boiler and thermal efficiency, and this is targeted for both BWL and Deep Green. And the next one is water technicals, that is for the BWL. And the fourth one is client pipeline and industry standards, and that is for Deep Green. And the next one is bill math and public audit, and that is for City Council and the BWL. The last one is decision criteria and public sentiment, and that is for the City Council. And I have my name, email address, and the phone number on top of many of the sheets. Some of the sheets do not have it. But if some of the questions are not answerable today, that is fine. But you can always take your time and answer at a next opportunity. And thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Marshall Clebeau, 4th Ward resident. Asking you please reject the sale of this property to Deep Green, as well as reject the rezoning. I can think of 1,000,001 different uses for this particular site to not remain a parking lot. I don't think anyone here wants that. From clean energy, solar, batteries, to housing, the mod pods, healthcare facilities. We're talking about a walkable piece of the city here. I mean, this is an important piece of land in that we're a block away from the river. We just built a brand new grocery store. The city's trying to move thousands of residents within less than half a mile of this site. Some of the concerns I have for rejecting this proposal, just the baseline concerns, health care, the health of the residents in the city. We don't know what the pollution from the EMF, the electromagnetic fields and the frequencies that are generated from this large energy user on this site. 24 megawatts is a lot of energy, whether it's a natural gas plant, a hydrogen fuel cell, the backup generators on site. We do realize that weekly that these generators, to maintain their stability, are gonna run a test. So we're talking about diesel generators. They're gonna say this is a biodegradable, like a vegetable oil fuel. It's still combustible. It's still gonna generate noise in the city. We're talking about physical noise that's going to ring throughout 24/7 while this is operating as a critical unit, critical facility. This is dangerous. That alone should be baseline for the city council to protect your own selves as well as the mayor to say, hey, we don't know about these health effects that are coming. We're seeing cancer, we're seeing disruption of sleep, disruption of children, adults, cognitive abilities. This is baseline, why we need to reject it. Furthermore, the energy demand, as I mentioned, this is being generated by fossil fuels. I'm not confident that BWL is not going to raise our rates. They did 2 years in a row to pay for the fossil fuel plant that's generating this data center load they claim is excess. This is not true. Thousands of people we've touched about, generational impact, we're talking about land forever. I mean, this is effectively, dead zoning a piece of walkable city's land to the development of Lansing. This is, I've spent a lot of time in the Stadium District apartments right there. It's a nice spot. It's right downtown Lansing. You can get to your job. You can go to the grocery store, go to the ball game. What is doing data center right here do to walkable cities? It's a dead zone. People are going to keep speeding. It's not going to slow down traffic. It's dangerous. And lastly, let's try to think about what we want Lansing to be. Do we really want Lansing to be contingent on an AI bubble without any real community benefits agreement in place? This has got to be rejected. Deep Green has promised some vague numbers, some misleading. The city of Lansing is only going to see some 200,000 of the million that's being shared in tax revenue. My time's running up, and so please reject the sale. Please reject the rezoning. There's a lot of better uses. And lastly, I saw an abhorrent video of a police officer kneeing on someone's neck last night, trying to stay warm. Please take action on this item.
Thank you.
Ivan Drusty, Ward 3. I emailed some questions to each of the city council members last night that I'd like to see you posed to Deep Green during their presentation today, but I figured since I'm here, I may as well read them into the record. On Saturday, I had a brief conversation with council member Garza, and he relayed a concern that if we were to reject this particular proposal, that Deep Green may end up building this data center elsewhere within BWL's service area, and therefore it will hook up to our electrical grid and burden our grid without actually providing us any of the tax benefits. So my first couple of questions are kind of interrogating that line of thought. So question one, does Deep Green believe that the parcels in question represent the only workable location in Lansing for this data center project? Would it be feasible from both an engineering standpoint and a financial standpoint for Deep Green to build a data center elsewhere in the city but outside the downtown region? Question two is along the same lines. Has Deep Green researched other potential locations for data center projects within the Border and Water of Light service area, but outside Lansing city limits? If so, has Deep Green identified any such locations as viable? Would Deep Green pursue a data center project elsewhere within BWL's service area if City Council were to reject this current proposal? Question three, if City Council does approve the proposal, are there any individuals presently employed by Deep Green who intend to take up residence in Lansing? Obviously, I'm not talking about the folks who they would employ at the facility after it's built. I'm talking about people who are employed currently by the company. Along the lines of employment, though, question four, if City Council approves Deep Green's proposal, how many individuals will Deep Green employ to operate the facility once it's operational? So I'm not talking about temporary construction jobs here, although, of course, we'd love to see those. I'm talking about long-term, full-time positions. How many of them will be full-time versus part-time? How many of them will be on-site versus remote? Question five, Deep Green estimates that the data center will draw 24 megawatts of electrical power. What is Deep Green's confidence in this estimate? Can Deep Green predict how the facility's electricity use might change in the future? Question six, does Deep Green intend to install backup generators on site? If so, how many will be installed, and what will be used to fuel them? Has Deep Green estimated how much fuel the generators will use annually? And finally, question seven, has Deep Green been in discussion with any potential clients for this data center? How does Deep Green intend on selecting its clients? So those are the questions. I hope that you'll pose them to Deep Green. Of course, I'm keeping an open mind as much as possible, but everything that I've seen so far from Deep Green has led me to oppose this project. So unless there's anything in this presentation that we're about to see that is drastically different from what they've said previously, I'd like to ask each of you to please vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to?
Hello, I'm Elaine Fishoff. I'm a Lansing resident and a BWL customer. I just want to bring up one question in connection with the rezoning. I went to the informational program at Lansing Center this past Saturday, and I spoke to a representative from BWL who informed me that 16 megawatts of energy was going to be provided by hydrogen fuel cells. Another colleague from the capital area Friends of the Environment went to the same meeting, talked to one person down, and he got the information that it was going to be a 16 megawatt gas plant being built downtown. I hope you figure out which one it is, and if so, whether that is truly consistent with the rezoning that you're voting on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Alimo. I'm also with the Capital Area Friends of the Environment, which is a local civic organization cafe, and we're urging the council to vote no to sell the land and to rezone it for the purposes of the data center. Data centers use significant amounts of electricity and water and prevent serious environmental concerns, including that have already been stated, including increased air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, stress on the living environment and water resources, and noise pollution. At the same time, data centers have significantly increased rates for consumers when a new electric generating plant is needed because of the huge increase in electricity consumption. And local residents should have a say in whether or not the community should bear these harms, and ordinary consumers should not pay more so that large companies can profit from hosting digital content. And so we're hoping that the City Council and the Board of Water and Light can publish the plan for what this data center is going to look like and allow public comment for 60 days, hold a public hearing, and then respond in writing to the comments. Further, moving forward, we urge the council to support the adoption of community benefits agreements for all new large public and private infrastructure development and to develop a community benefit ordinance. These tools quantify and legally bind all the relevant parties to the delivery of specific benefits and are a way to ensure that developers are good citizens regarding public interest concerns associated with data centers or other developments. The ones specifically for data centers are the living environment, water use, equity, affordability of energy systems, and public health concerns, including noise. Community benefits ordinances mandate that every new large development should include multiple groups in the negotiations before contracts are signed, including the public and local neighborhoods and community-based organizations, to ensure benefits to all outweigh the harms. The citizens of Detroit passed a community benefits ordinance in 2016, and we should do this as well. Finally, given the overwhelming negative impacts of data centers, as a private citizen, I urge Mid-Michigan to just say no to data centers. Our governments should prioritize sustainability, fairness, and community well-being over corporate profits. Instead of building more data centers, the City Council and Lansing Board of Water and Light should invest in energy efficiency and affordability, community solar, and green technologies that reduce environmental harm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aria Mori, and I'm an East Side resident. I want to begin by asking you all one question. How was your evening last night? Did you eat a hot meal? Did you sleep in a warm bed? Did you wake up this morning and take a hot shower before starting your day? I want you to hold that thought while I tell you about the night many of your constituents just lived through. I work at the Women's Center of Greater Lansing, one of the many nonprofits that stepped up when this city would not find the spine to do so. I spent the night awake, fueled by coffee, running an emergency shelter. In the past days, I've slept a total of 9 hours. During that time, I've had the utmost privilege of getting to know my unhoused neighbors. Let me be clear, my story is not unique. It is shared by nonprofit staff across the city who repeatedly fill the gaps that you leave behind. Your constituents filled those gaps too. Volunteers gave up their evenings, cooked meals, covered shifts, and staffed warming centers because they refused to let their neighbors freeze. And then there are the people you seem most comfortable forgetting. I met individuals who spent their nights in warming centers unsure how long the doors would stay open. They played cards with us, they made us laugh, they woke up offering to clean, to help, to do whatever needed to be done. They thanked us for shelter, something that should be a basic human right, not a seasonal favor. I am angry and I am disgusted. My mother did not raise me to stay quiet when people suffer. She raised me to recognize every human being as worthy of dignity, safety, and shelter, no qualifiers, no exceptions. I have to wonder how you were all raised and the people who raised you, and if they would be proud of the choices that you are making now. I'm disgusted by how the city has chosen to treat human beings. I'm disgusted at the attempts to gaslight the public into believing you are part of the solution. I'm disgusted that you speak of compassion while relying on nonprofits, volunteers, and exhausted workers to do your jobs for you. To be clear, you left people to die. You refused to open City Hall, a building already heated and paid for by taxpayers. You told the public there was no need because the issue was, quote, handled by other organizations in the area. The need was handled by donations, volunteer labor, and nonprofit workers burning themselves out. That is not leadership, and it is not a long-term solution to a crisis that will happen again. The people of this city make me proud. Neighbors showed up for neighbors in ways that put this body to shame. But it is not the public's responsibility to compensate for governmental inaction. So here's my call to action. Stop outsourcing your responsibility. Stop relying on emergency measures and goodwill. Commit publicly and immediately to creating and funding permanent long-term housing solutions for our unhoused neighbors. Because charity is not justice, and survival should never depend on how cold it is outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to remind folks, public comment at this time is on agenda items for the committee of the whole meeting, so please make sure that your comments are directed at agenda items. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Greg Pratt with Michigan Hope. I have concerns about Caseway Bay, the hotel that's housing all of our homeless population right now. I personally feel like the city is picking and choosing who we are helping right now. For example, nobody else in the city has the opportunity to go to that hotel that's homeless. It would have been awesome if they could go there right now when it was super cold out. Other concern is we have resources going there on twice a week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They are not going out to the streets to see the people. They're only helping the people in those hotels. How is this fair? And my question is to the Chief of Staff and to the City Attorney. Tomorrow is pit day across the country. Are we allowed to count those people? Because the other community members throughout this community do not have equal access to that hotel like the rest of the people do. That's my question, and I would like an answer for that. I've spoken to the HUD office of Detroit. They have concerns what's going on here right now, and I think this issue needs to be addressed. I feel there should be equal access to that hotel. If we have 60 rooms, they should always be full. Right now, they are not all full. There's vacancies there right now. It was super cold out. And also, I would like to thank you, Councilmember Ryan Cost. On Monday, we had an issue with the Let's Community Center. It was locked, the doors were locked. There was a sign on the door that said it was closed. I had to call him. We had a couple that was frozen in desperate needs. They had a dog. They needed help. We contacted the police department. Police department said it's closed. Dispatch was telling everybody through the county it was closed. Ryan Cost went over there, knocked on the door, found out it was actually opened. He brought a kennel for the dog to go into. The next day I called around because I wanted to know what was going on with the community, why the Let's Community Center was saying it was closed. Dispatch was telling everybody, not just the people in the city of Lansing, East Lansing, Meridian. We have people coming from all over the community to Let's. We had people coming all the way from Dansville coming to the city of Lansing. Yes, from Dansville, Oak Park Drive, right on M52 off of Dansville Road. Why is that? The problem is if they're coming to our city, how are they getting back to that location? They're not. So they're going to stay here. That dries up all of our resources for our community. Please look into this issue. It's a county-wide issue. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Mills. I'm a senior at Michigan State University studying neuroscience. While East Lansing has only been my home for the last 4 years, it and the greater Lansing area will always hold a place in my heart. The future of this community, my community, matters to me. I'm opposed to the addition of a data center in downtown Lansing. While I understand the purpose of data centers to store important information and to help AI develop further, we already have them in Lansing. I believe we should focus on retrofitting the ones we already have instead of creating more. It was proposed by Deep Green that their facility can bring in more money to the community that can be spent on helping the unhoused community of Lansing, but perhaps a better way of doing that could be to construct a homeless shelter or a community kitchen in this lot space. This would not only directly help the community, but also open up permanent jobs that wouldn't require levels of experience that come with working in a data center. Both facilities would also be a prime location for volunteer work, allowing students, like myself, and community members to further integrate and meet others within the Lansing population. I've looked into this company, Deep Green, and I will be honest, it looks a lot better than a lot of the other data centers around the country. I come from the stance of, if not this company, then who? But I'm also of the opinion that maybe we should acknowledge that part of the reason we need more data centers is to help fund the AI arms race that billionaires are in, and we're getting dragged along. We only have so many resources on this planet, and I urge my lawmakers and fellow community members to ask yourself, when is too much too much? Maybe instead of trying to bioengineer our way through life, which in my opinion is unrealistic and unsustainable, we should instead be focusing on regulating our data and energy usage, consolidating to only what we absolutely need to ensure that everyone has access to the resources they need at a reasonable price. From what I can tell through the research I've done, this data center won't harm the environment as much as the others we hear about across the nation, but why should we keep trying to progress exponentially when we have finite resources on this earth, when we have people on our streets starving and freezing, when the reliability of Michigan's electrical grid is rated as one of the lowest in the nation? This data center might not be the end of the world, but it is certainly a reflection of our greed, and it saddens me to witness. I implore Deep Green to work with the current data centers to buy them out and make them better instead of creating a brand new one. On that thought, if it does become built, who's to say it won't become obsolete within the next 10 years? Then what? Will another data center be proposed? When does it stop? Thank you for your time.
Hello, council members. My name is Dylan Zaks, and I am a Michigan State student and a member of the Sunrise Movement, and I too am against the building of this data center. I and my colleagues want to work with you to find a solution to the concerns that we have been and that I will present. For some background, since you may not know me, I was born in Flint, but I've not only ever lived my life in Michigan. My life has brought me to Massachusetts, to Florida, and back to my birthplace. My lived experiences make me one of the people that most understand the importance of waterway preservation. Flint, as you well know, has faced water crises in the past with Democratic votes for practices that seemed advantageous, but only ever harmed the marginalized communities living there. Massachusetts, you may not know, has drastically scaled back many of its damming projects in order to preserve the gentle currents that keep its ecosystem running. Florida, as I'm sure you can guess, faces significant environmental degradation due to toothless legislation, privatized local interests, and a political climate that devalues the very nature that supplies its economy. I will not stand to see Lansing become any one of these places where I've lived. Lansing's red cedar and its watershed is our pride and the keystone to not just our local ecosystem, but our agricultural success. I know that you don't want to see it harmed any more than you want to see our local population suffer. You've told me yourself, Clara, that you want to safeguard our home now and for generations to come. I worry that the opaque and nonspecific policy outlined in Michigan's Common Law Section 205.54 EE, my analysis of which I've sent to each of you, is not enough to encourage not just Deep Green, but data center projects across the state to protect our local watersheds and invest in our communities. If you understand my concern, please work with my group and other environmental groups to create a community benefits agreement to hold them accountable to Michigan's common law. If they have taken measures to ensure that they are not an enterprise data center, as outlined in Michigan's common law, ask yourselves, do we want to trust a company that would go so far to make sure that these environmental sanctions do not apply to them? Thank you for your time. Go green, and I hope to continue my work of advocacy with you all.
Good evening, Council. My name is Aaron Nowland. I represent IBEW Local 665 here in Lansing. We have over 850 electricians that are members of our union. I first moved to the Lansing area in 1996. I have since lived in Okemos, Hazlet, Lansing, Holt, Lansing again, back to Holt. But one thing I can tell you is I've always been tied to the Lansing area since moving here the first time. I have 850 members that are tied to the Lansing area. They reside in Lansing and in the surrounding communities. They go to your ballparks, they go to your city parks, they spend money in your downtown area. I've heard a lot about temporary jobs for these construction projects. Yes, they are temporary jobs. Every construction job is. But the point is, construction needs to keep going in order to keep these workers employed, in order to keep these skilled laborers in our communities, and in order to support our tax base as well. I am here in support of the Deep Green project. I think overall the plan is good for Lansing. I think the integration into our public utility system is a brilliant idea, and I'm in support of this project overall, and I support it for my members and for this community. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, council members. My name is Logan Fairchild. I am employed by the university, MSU, and I also studied there. I studied environmental economics and management. And I just want to first thank all of the union men that came out and support their workers today. My father is a proud union man. I am a proud member of a union family. But I would much rather see our union laborers produce something that is more of a long-term investment for this community. Many industry leaders in the AI industry have raised concerns recently that the AI bubble may be on the verge of popping within the next year. And that concerns me, that frightens me. I would hate to see us as a community pour so much time and money and resources into a project that will be more or less unusable within a year. My father, like I mentioned, is a proud union man, and he is also a very proud sportsman, a hunter and a fisherman. And there's nothing he hates to see more than a foreign company abuse our natural resources here in the United States. The UN has recently declared that we are in a freshwater bankruptcy across the world. Freshwater resources are incredibly limited. It seems disrespectful and wasteful to the many sportsmen in this nation, in this state, as well as the people that rely on that fresh water to use it for something that might go under within a year. And so those are my concerns that I would like to raise with you today.
Hey, my name is Erin, and I am against the data center. Deep Green claims to be a new kind of data center. They have to make a point of setting themselves apart from other data centers because these centers have already caused so much harm in other communities in the form of wasting precious natural resources, raising local utility costs, and negatively impacting community health, often in the form of increased cancer and asthma through release of nitrogen oxides released through diesel backup generators. That's quoted from the CDC. I used to work in a tiny Catholic school in Camden, New Jersey, located just up the block from a water treatment site. I suspect when this site was approved, they probably also told residents this was a responsible and sustainable choice. It was for purifying wastewater to return to the river, after all. It turned out that this site would burn their waste, resulting in the school and surrounding areas' air being so thick with smoke, children would tell me they couldn't breathe. So many of these children developed asthma that on especially bad air quality days, we would require inside recess for their safety. Children were not allowed to go play outside because they couldn't safely breathe because of the sustainable water treatment site. I had the opportunity to tour the site with some of our middle schoolers during a field trip. I asked every employee if they lived in the city. Not one. All these folks were commuting in, destroying our local air, destroying the health of families, and then going home at the end of the day to their clean air and their kids who could play outside. I tell you this story because I do not feel that just because something is labeled as sustainable or has green in the title means it is good. And certainly just because something is supposedly better than others of its kind also does not automatically mean a thing is good. We are dealing with something here which is providing very little real-world examples of working well within a community and a whole lot of examples of it working very badly. For example, all the data centers in the south who are at the point where they need even more energy, so they've expanded to coal mining and other dirty energy methods. How do we know Deep Green won't turn to similar methods if they ever need more energy than anticipated? Just because Deep Green is presenting a closed loop system, we're just supposed to look the other way? We're just supposed to make our city the guinea pig for this new system and trust a company with absolutely no stake in our community aside from profit margins? If this new system truly has zero drawbacks, as their website suggests, why aren't they implementing it in their own cities, where their own children play? Why are they making Lansing the experiment? And why are you considering letting them?
Good evening, City Council. My name is Mike Smulligan. I'm a resident of the Cherry Hill neighborhood. And Cherry Hill is 1 block west and 2 blocks south of the corner of Cedar and Kalamazoo. So I look out my window and I can see and hear the site in question. And I'm not the only one that lives in Cherry Hill neighborhood. There's also Paula and Alan that are right now living underneath the 496 bridge, homeless. I walk to work. I walk by the Lansing Housing Commission projects. I'm thrilled to see 2 new apartment buildings that are legally designated as affordable housing. That is a spectacular investment here in the city of Lansing, because only 100 yards north of that is where Jahari is sleeping on a steam vent on Grand Avenue. So there's a lot going on in Cherry Hill. I'd like to welcome City Hall to the neighborhood. I'm happy to see that building going up. I have 5 questions for you regarding your decisions regarding the rezoning and sale of that corner lot to Deep Green. My first question is, do you really know what you are permitting? Is it only a data center, or is it a power plant? All the press leading up to this event said that the Board of Water and Light had excess power, plenty, to sell 24 megawatts to this facility. But on Saturday, we learned that there's a new power plant being built on that location. Is it natural gas? Is it, hydrogen? Is it coal? What are you permitting? My second question is the city ever going to meet its sustainability goals if we start investing in massive energy-consuming data centers? 24 megawatts may be small, but 24 megawatts is 24,000 kilowatt hours, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. That's 210 million kilowatt hours. I live in a small apartment in Cherry Hill neighborhood. I use 900 kilowatt hours. That may be on the low end compared to many folks in Lansing, but Deep Green is using 233,000 times the power that I consume as an individual. So will we ever meet our sustainability goals? My third question is the Board of Water and Light charging enough for their industrial power rate? 8 cents a kilowatt is 6 times what I'm paying as a resident. So families, I'm paying 47 cents a kilowatt with all the fees that are on top of my 17 cents a kilowatt. So shouldn't we be asking industries to pay more? Fourth, are you getting adequate community benefits? I contribute $12 to pennies for power, but based on my utility usage, Deep Green should be paying $2.8 million, not $120,000. And then finally, I've got 10 seconds to ask you, what parts of the Lansing noise ordinance are you going to hold Deep Green accountable for? I don't see data centers in here, and so when I open my windows, how much noise am I going to hear? Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. Seeing none, we will move on to discussion action items. Thank you everyone for your participation. Public comment? Oh. We're moving back.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I did sign in, so
Sorry, at Committee of the Whole, we don't do sign in. You just can come on down. Sorry about that.
there's a form that, it says Committee of the Whole, and I signed it. Did I sign the wrong place or something?
We signed it in, so that sign-in sheet in this meeting is just so that we have the correct spelling communications for anyone who's here in the public.
Thank you.
Please.
I'm sorry, I
That's
didn't
all
know
right.
that.
Go ahead.
Okay. A couple issues. In regard to the resolutions that are before you tonight, C&D.
I'm sorry, can I get your name?
Sorry, Deborah Mulcahy.
Thank
1200
you.
South Genesee Drive. I apologize. Good evening, everyone. In regard to the resolution C and D, somebody just mentioned the noise ordinance. The city of Lansing does not enforce their noise ordinance. I'd love to see when it's been done. The resolution C and D, it's not part of the environmental assessment that the city did and submitted to the state of Michigan. And having just lived through the CSO, I truly, truly recommend that you not expand the time period that people have to deal with noise. It's not just a truck going by, it's not just construction, it's the odors, it's life. You lose your life when this construction is going on. You don't want to go outside, you don't want to open your windows. So I just don't want to see you doing that. The second issue I have is on F and G in reference to the special land use permit for the church being converted to a shelter care facility. I made a FOIA request to obtain a copy of the application that was made by the applicant, being the Union Baptist Church, because it was not part of the packet. I don't know how the Planning Commission, maybe they get that separately, but I still haven't gotten a response to my FOIA request. But what I do know from what I have received is it appears that the city has before them for you folks to review and approve a shelter care facility, and the applicant has not made a request for that. I don't know how legally you guys review and evaluate and make decisions on something that is not legally before you. In reference to what was talked about in reference to Deep Green, I offer you a couple things. One, this gentleman just talked about the pennies for helping people. I think that should be much higher, and I think it should be related to inflation. The second thing is, the concept has been presented that the building will only be used for a data center. Is that really prudent? Maybe when the data center leaves, maybe it could be used for a homeless shelter or a community center. But one thing I don't think anybody's discussed is the issue of what happens with the property taxes associated with that building. When any business, these big box stores, leave their buildings and they make them no longer functional for themselves, what happens to the property taxes? Do any of you really know? If you live in a community where that's been impacted, you will know. You still pay, the business pays the property tax on the land, but they no longer pay the property taxes if there is a building in there. So if Best Buy moves out of Lansing and moves to Timbuktu, they don't have to pay anything for that building that's left there. The same thing that would apply to the data center. It's been an issue before the legislature for years. So I thank you, and I want you to really consider that, and I want you to have a plan for sustainability. Please, thank you.
I would like to say something. I also didn't know you can just walk up. I'm newer to Lansing. My name is Emma Ronan. I think that the lead is being buried on the concept of these data centers entirely. Like somebody had mentioned previously, the AI bubble is, predicted to burst by all experts. Really what we're talking about here is data centers being built across our nation so that global surveillance can be enacted among you, me, every single civilian of this nation. Peter Thiel is a man who owns Palantir, and now you might see his devices in your skies. I come from Dearborn in the Detroit area. For years now, we have had flock cameras that watch us in our vehicles, and the level of surveillance that is being implemented under the guise of, jobs are going to be available temporarily, or, AI is going to help us because somehow it's some all-knowing, omnipotent thing. It's all a farce, ultimately. We are being subjected to a level of surveillance that I think needs to be mentioned, and I'm not hearing it at these meetings. I don't really have much more to say. I think I would like also to ask you guys if you have any stock or sharehold in stock that are associated with this data center. I think the transparency there would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Faith Bradley, and I want to express my strong disagreement for the building and running of the Deep Green Data Center in our community. I've been a homeowner in Lansing's Eastside neighborhood for 5 years and consider Lansing to be my forever home. My home is currently 9 blocks away from where the data center is proposed to be constructed. First of all, I'm deeply concerned about the precedent allowing a data center so close to residential areas would set. I'm also an urban farmer with the Magnolia Avenue Farm Collective, also in the Lansing Eastside neighborhood, which makes me particularly concerned about rezoning in this manner and the potential water, air, ground, and noise pollution that this and future projects may cause if we allow this first one to go in. If we allow this data center to be literally 9 blocks where I live, where I have neighbors across the street from where the site is supposed to be, what does that mean for what is allowed to take place near land that I grow food on for my neighbors and myself? But I want to be very clear, while I am opposed to this rezoning, particularly when it is so close to where I live and where I farm food with other community members, I do not think the city of Lansing or BWL should be investing in data centers, period, no matter the location. If this was in a rural area, if this was in a place that was already industrially rezoned, I would still be against it. I think globally, we are already hurtling past climate tipping points, which the proliferation of data centers and the AI boom have contributed to. We need to be consuming fewer resources as a community and as a nation, and prioritizing investments in actually sustainable solutions, not ones that are just so-called carbon neutral. I frankly do not care if this is the most sustainable, environmentally friendly, safe, and efficient data center in the world. We do need to be prioritizing our communities in ways that reduce our power consumption and prioritize clean, renewable energy. Thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Ben Macheski. I'm a resident of East Lansing, and I recently attended the open house that Deep Green had, and I spoke to one of the representatives, and my concern is in the lack of information they had provided us, especially in regards to the amount of water that this data center would use. When I asked the representative, he told me, about 5 to 6 trucks worth, whatever that means. I found that careless number kind of insulting as someone concerned about our limited resources we have, and I don't see how this will benefit the community at all. I mean, a data center in the long run could contribute to 15 to 30 specialized jobs maybe after the construction, and in the zone that is proposed in, I could see that land be used for a plethora of better things, so please take these into consideration when making your decision. And also take into consideration the treatment of that water and what happens if there is a leak and that treated water goes into our natural supply, because as far as I know, there is no plan for what would happen if that treated water in their closed loop system does somehow break out. Thank you.
Hey there, my name's John Warm. I've been living in this city for pretty much my whole life. I live on the east side, just within spitting distance where the Deep Green Data Center has been proposed to being built. I want to express that I am firmly against this data center being built. I attended Deep Green's open house last weekend and had some questions that I don't feel are being adequately addressed. And echoing some other comments that have been made here tonight, concerns involving their closed loop method of cooling and where exactly that water goes to be disposed of. This was something that the company was unable to answer. And frankly, given that this is such a small company and their lack of experience in successfully demonstrating their ability to build and to dispose of water, to do all of the things that are required to make a project like this not catastrophic for the environment, I have a hard time trusting them. I have a hard time trusting them to come into this community and take the residents of this community and our concerns seriously. I have a hard time trusting them when they tell me that this is a 95 to 98% efficient build when they're really burying the lead and saying this about heat that's being provided to BWL on a system that's not yet built, in perfect conditions when BWL needs all of this heat that's being created by the data center. Maybe in that scenario, there is some, efficiency there, but there's also months out of the year where this heat will just be, vented into the atmosphere. Not that, they couldn't speak to what percentage of the power that's going into this would end up being wasted. And directed me kind of to BWL, who also couldn't answer these questions. So I saw at the open house a really troubling lack of transparency from Deep Green, and a real kind of brushing away of some serious concerns that were mine and also shared by many residents. I also think that the location that they are building this in is far too close to residents in a majority black neighborhood. I think it is far too close to residents who, as others have said, live in under-bridge locations and are marginalized in plenty of ways. I think this is environmentally racist practice, and I don't think you should say yes to this project. It is terrible.
Hi, my name is Steph Andershannon. I've lived in Lansing for over a decade now. I just want to briefly say I'm against the Deep Green data center project, and I think that City Council, if you are listening to your community members who you're representing, a lot of us don't want them here. If they were doing something that was truly safe, truly not going to cause problems, why aren't they doing it in their own communities? There's so much that so many people have already said about the possible or the potential consequences of the environmental impact, the noise, our unhoused neighbors. I think that if we're prioritizing a company that is here to make a profit, we are not prioritizing the residents of this city. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to deliver public comment? All right. Anyone after that? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ella Veronica Garza, and I am a citizen or a resident of Lansing. I've lived here for about 3 years, about 1 mile north of the proposed data center. I currently am a student at Michigan State University getting my bachelor's and master's degree in environmental microbiology. So I feel that I have somewhat of a grasp on environmental sustainability and things to look for when companies are clearly trying to greenwash projects. So I have several concerns regarding the Deep Green proposed data center, many of which stem from a open house where I got to speak to Deep Green representatives, and like many of my community members here, was deeply troubled by the lack of transparency and the amount of times that the response to my question was simply, "I don't know." Deep Green claims that they want to use 100% renewable energy sources to power their center, yet because of the complexities of the American power grid, they can't do that right away. When I asked them what they were hoping to start with, they said, "I don't know." When I asked what their plans were to get to 100%, they said, "I don't know." When I asked who was keeping them accountable, they said, "I don't know." In addition to many of the environmental concerns that were brought up by both me and my fellow community members, the type of data that is going to be stored in these centers is paramount to this project and to our understanding of whether or not we want to move forward with it. So as somebody else mentioned, the mass surveillance state of this country is and continues to be a big problem. Deep Green is UK-based and has told me themselves that they are coming into a political landscape that they don't fully understand, and they also do not have the stakes in to fully understand it and to hold themselves accountable to it. Because of this, it could be extremely irresponsible to allow this data center to move forward, given the massive potential harm, not only to the people of Lansing, but to all Americans. And to let this move forward, I think, is deeply grievous to both people in Lansing and residents of Michigan. I'd also like to touch on the idea of the creation of sustainable jobs. Deep Green has claimed that they will have hundreds of jobs for the building of the data center, yet only 15 permanent positions there of good union sustainable jobs. So what will this data center do for Lansing 20 years from now, rather than just the short term? So I urge you to take these things into consideration when you make your decision, and thank you for listening to the citizens of Lansing, and I hope that your vote was worth it.
Hey, good evening, council members. My name is Mateo Cleary, and I am a resident of Lansing and live about 10 blocks from here. And prior to moving here and settling here, I worked as a senior social scientist and senior scientist for a couple of natural resource management agencies. One of the reasons I was excited to move back to Lansing, it was to use the natural resources, and because we live at the confluence of the Grand and the Red Cedar Rivers. And, you know, one of the perennial struggles as being a Midwesterner trying to recreate and eat fish and whatnot is that you can't eat most of the fish in mid-Michigan, but I know we're working on it and trying to get our waters healthy again. And I do firmly believe that this will be a step back for the watershed management we're trying to do in the Lansing area. And I do recognize that in a post-industrial, hollowed-out, rust-built city like Lansing, as a person who was born in Detroit, I do see that we have like a long uphill walk toward getting healthy watersheds once again. But aside from that, frankly, just having another industry move over into our city when we've been pretty disinvested in our industry and both our working capacity has been hollowed out, feels predatory to me. I feel like I've seen it time and time again, both in Detroit, both in Madison, where I used to live, and you know, the factory shut down, life slows down, we're disinvested, people are struggling, and people aren't able to get the basic services they need. But then again, we have another industry that claims to do a very good on paper thing, but is going to provide jobs for 15, you know, my assumption is middle class, white, upper middle class tech workers, some of which I have in my family, so it's not like I'm far removed from that. But I don't believe that that's truly an investment for the city of Lansing if it's also coming at the cost of watershed, health, and just going to be in a place where I frankly would rather see a homeless shelter, or I frankly would rather have a community center, or a third space to be able to go with my friends. And that's free and accessible, and for people to use Wi-Fi and get warm and have coffee. So I implore you to vote no on this decision, and thank you for taking the time to consider our opinions.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelly Smith. I'm a resident and a homeowner on the East Side community. A lot of people have already said a lot of things I already agree on regarding the Deep Green data center. I'm an arborist. I've worked in forestry. I've worked in commercial fishing. Very invested in the environment. It's one of the reasons I've been living in Michigan since 2008. And everything the last person up here was saying, I totally agree with. I really am concerned about kind of the oversight of what our watershed is going to look like should anything egregious happen with this data center. I've also gotten pretty wishy-washy answers from any of the other public hearings I've went to regarding the data center. Interestingly, one of the things that keep getting thrown back at me is like, well, they're British. That doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in me. British Petroleum is one of the largest polluters on the planet, and last I checked, we're in America. We kind of had a rot relationship with the British anyways. But all joking aside, I think having an international corporation come in here to do work in the U.S., it raises a lot of concerns. I mean, some of the criticisms the U.S. has in our corporations is we often go somewhere else in the world when the regulations here are tighter than what we're allowed to do. So I sit and wonder what is their interest in opening up a facility here in the United States. I also think about the surveillance aspect a lot as well. We're currently in an era where the federal government and the administration there is looking to take away many of our freedoms, encroach on our private lives. We're a city that is a vibrant queer community, and as there is more and more aggression towards our community in that regard, I think of what is this data center contributing to? Is it just another opportunity for corporations and states' collusion to encroach on our private lives and damage us further down the line? And you know, the best part of me wants to believe the CEOs and CTOs and all the other C-level people I don't care to mention do have the best intentions in mind. But with all other companies, what happens when the tides change at the corporation and the ownership and who's using that data changes? I really think big data in general, as we move forward, is something we need to be skeptical of. It is new. There's a lot of speculation in that industry to begin with. I currently don't trust it. I don't think a lot of my fellow community members I have talked to trust it. And I think as Lansing, as a city, we should be very skeptical moving forward of what role we want our city to play moving forward, when especially this space could be used for so many better things. It could employ so many people for far better things that have already been mentioned. That is my time. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to deliver public comment?
Hello, my name is Sarah Linder. I moved here in 2023, and I used to live on a farm. We practiced a bunch of sustainability, and I've grown to make the city my home. And the thought of East Lansing bringing a data center into it and releasing more pollution, not only just into the air, but into the water and the noise pollution for anybody living by that data center, I just strongly disagree with it. And I really do hate the fact that everybody has gotten very blank answers on what their plans are. I feel like they are just coming in here and placing that data center here, using it as a test. Why aren't they placing it like where they live in their own communities? I really hope that you decline this, and thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Mark Herman. I am a Lansing homeowner, and I work at MSU, where I am a proud member and a steward in Local 1585. I would just like to discuss Deep Green themselves. Throughout this entire proposal, Deep Green has bent over backwards trying to convince Lansing that they are a different data center than all the other ones out there. After hearing from Deep Green themselves and all the promises and sales pitches they have made, I find it very hard to believe what they say. I really think in the end, if this data center is built here in Lansing, the only people that will benefit from this project in the long run will be Deep Green themselves, BMWL, and when things go wrong, the working people of Lansing are gonna have to foot the bill. Thank you for your time. Once again, I do not support the Deep Green Data Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to deliver public comment? Anyone after this?
Hello, City Council members. My name is Sean Farnham. I have been living in this area for about 4 years. I'm an East Lansing resident. And my hometown of Saline just recently had a data center, or is going to have a data center built from Oracle. And beyond just the comments that have been brought up at this meeting, I would also like to bring up the fact that Saline's city council was not able to move fast enough and had to eventually settle for the lesser of two evils in order to make sure that the least damage that could be done was brought. That data center did make promises to the community of Saline, but there are a lot of unanswered questions that are still left in the air. I think that it's important to be careful when it comes to the building of these data centers and the amount of costs that are going to be passed on to consumers as a result of it. I know that the data center has made a lot of promises to both the Lansing Board of Water and Light and probably the City Council, considering its consumer impact that it is going to have, especially when it comes to heat generation being given to the City of Lansing for energy purposes. However, these types of promises that are made don't account for the fact that these are to mitigate the cost that is going to be passed on anyways, regardless of whether or not they're going to be giving their energy or byproduct heat to the city, that these prices are going to be raised as a result regardless. And they don't seem to really have a plan to mitigate these over time, and it seems like a lot of people have gotten very unclear answers about what is actually going to be given to them over time. I think that a lot of environmental costs are going to be imposed on the local community. And I personally think that data centers of this size and also of larger sizes like we're going to be seeing in my hometown are largely dangerous due to the fact that a lot of these AI data centers are being protected unilaterally by the federal government. I think that it's important for these data centers to be regulated a lot more tightly in general, and that we need to exercise a lot more caution when it comes to introducing them to our communities. And it's also really, really important for us to move fast. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that regardless of the decision, that at least some protections are made quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Levi Labruzzi. I've lived in Lansing for about 6 years now. I've lived between the east side and the stadium district. I really don't want this data center to happen. I feel really nervous about a lot of the information. Feels really speculative and lacking and unclear. I feel really unsure about what's going to happen in the summer when they don't need the excess heat. I feel really nervous about the coolant. I think it's also pretty glaringly obvious that this would be built in and near a residential area, and I really don't want this in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on to virtual public comment, and I'm now closing in-person public comment. City TV, we're ready for our virtual participant.
Hi, my name is Mike Gorshak, and I've been working closely with more than 50 unhoused people from Dietrich Park who are currently residents of the Causeway Bay Motel. I'm asking that we please move forward with the 6-week extension. These folks are receiving services, but these services take time. Time to secure housing, time to activate resources, and time to prevent people from falling back into crisis. This is a practical, humane step. I urge you to extend the stay and give people a real chance to move forward. I'd also like to agree with the prior speaker that it would be great to evaluate if additional unhoused folks could have access to solutions at or similar to the project going on at Causeway Bay. There are hundreds of unhoused here in our community that could benefit with similar solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our discussion action items. Item B, we're pulling from this agenda. Mr. Butcher was not able to attend today, so that'll be dealt with another committee meeting. And items C and D, we're going to have Mark Jones join us from the Public Service Department. Normally these would be in the Operations Committee, but beginning of the year we didn't have that committee scheduled yet, so we brought them to the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Jones, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Council. I'm here on behalf of the contractor, Hoffman Brothers. They have requested a noise waiver for the CSO 019 project to allow work on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. A major component of this year's work on the project will be the construction of Oakland Avenue. So that will be a complete closure of Oakland from Grand Avenue to Walnut Street. They anticipate with, if they're able to work on Saturdays, they should complete it in about 4 months. If they don't get Saturdays, it could take an additional 6 weeks. MDOT has requested, well, whenever they do detours on MDOT roadways, they like to detour onto other MDOT roadways, and so the detour for Oakland would be 496. So that is a large detour. So the quicker we can get this project completed, the better. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Questions? Seeing none, I'll need a motion to pass the, oh, no? Okay. Need a motion to pass the resolution for item C.
I move the resolution to set a public hearing for the noise special permit Hoffman Brothers to request for the combined sewer overflow project with the project area on major streets of West Oakland Avenue, North Walnut Street, North Seymour Avenue, North Capitol Avenue, and North Washington Avenue, and that the public hearing be held on February 9th, 2026 at 7 p.m.
It is a proper motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion for item D.
The next project is also here on behalf of Hoffman Brothers. This is for the CSO 016-017 Phase 2 project. This is a project that had originally been scheduled for a 1.5-year construction. However, due to some significant delays we had with CSX Railway, this is now pushed into a 3rd year of construction. This is completing work on East North Street in the north of the Old Town area. And it's, they're requesting this noise waiver in order to expedite this project as much as possible, considering the long delays that we've already had, so.
Is there any questions? Seeing none, I'll need a motion.
Thank you. I move the resolution to set a public hearing on the noise special permit from Hoffman Brothers, Inc. and the request to allow for the combined sewer overflow 016/017 project within the project area on major streets East North Street and Turner Road, and for the public hearing to be held February 9th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in Lansing City Council chambers.
That is a proper motion. Any further discussion? Councilmember Hussein.
So just, Mark, in terms of both of these, so the intent would be for this particular contractor to work every Saturday. They can work within that time frame, correct?
Correct.
And for that second one, the noise waiver, I don't know if I caught a time, but is it that Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. as well?
8 to 4:30, yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that, yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, Councilmember Hussein. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. Thank you, President Spatafor. Quick question for the second item. You said it was scheduled, it's been scheduled for a 1.5 years. It's been pushed back. What's the time frame of completing that? Do we have an estimate?
Their estimate right now is that project will be completed probably mid to late September of this year. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. We are on to item E, which is the deficit elimination plan for the Lansing Public Media Authority for payroll services reimbursement. We have with us tonight Crystal Thomas and Jake Brower. Jake, Crystal, you all know the drill.
Thank you for having us before you. My name is Jake Brower. I'm not Crystal Thomas, who is sitting right next to me.
Hello, I'm Crystal Thomas, representing the Finance Department.
Overall, looking at this item, this is a partially administrative process in relation to the Michigan Department of Treasury. So as part of the audit process, if at any time during the audit there's a deficit in any of our funds, we submit a plan to the Department of Treasury on eliminating that. The Lansing Public Media Authority is its own entity of the city that is helping design and ultimately will operate the Ovation Public Media Center. This covers is part of a process where currently as they only have one employee, they're running through their payroll services through the city of Lansing, but they're ultimately paying their way, and so they've been reimbursing us along the way, and we periodically clean that up, that everything balances out. This payment that was still on our balance as of June 30 has since been fully reimbursed, and so, but at the time of completing our audit, it's still outstanding as a receivable, and so this recognizes that this cost is being reimbursed and cleared out on our end and will be fully on the books of the Lansing Public Media Authority. And so they're fundraising, helping design the facility, and this is should be just a short-term item to help us be on good terms with the state of Michigan. Yeah.
Yes, and I was just going to say, this is a routine requirement so that we can be in good standing with the Department of Treasury so that funds can be released for other projects. So it's, again, there was no actual shortage. It was the timing of this particular payment. And so now we just have to follow this process with the state.
Is it fair to compare this to a journal entry post-audit?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you. I move the resolution for the Deficit Elimination Plan, Lansing Public Media Authority for the payroll services reimbursement.
It is a proper motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next items F and G we'll take together. We have with us this evening Raleigh Van Fossen, Stu Statuick, and Pastor Kenny Craig, I believe, from the Union Missionary Baptist Church to speak about the public hearing on Z1 2026 and the SLU 1-2026. So we'll probably start with our folks from ED&P to talk about the staff report on these two items.
Do you want me to? Thanks, Council President. As folks know, I'm Raleigh Van Fossen. I oversee the Department of Economic Development and Planning. I have with me here tonight our zoning administrator, Sue Statuick, her and her team. We have our senior planner, Andy Fidewa, as well with us in the audience. They have the great privilege of staffing our planning commission. As many who've been on council before, but certainly for our two new members, items like this in terms of a rezoning and sometimes an adjoining special land use permit do go before our planning commission first. And so these items were heard before the planning commission previously, and they have since been referred to council. So Sue is going to try and give us a brief summary of the staff report, and then we'll hand it over to the pastor for comments.
Thank you. And the Planning Commission's recommendation on these, both the rezoning and the special land use is to approve the request. The property right now is zoned DT1 downtown edge, which does not allow shelters, period. So the request is to rezone the property to the DT2 urban flex, which does allow shelters with a special land use permit. So that's the accompanying request. Staff recommendation is also to approve these. It's number one, it serves a very important need, as we've heard tonight, and you've heard at a lot of meetings recently, to provide shelter space. The applicant, the church right now, is operating on a temporary permit that's being reviewed on a month-to-month basis until the zoning has been decided upon to allow shelter in the gymnasium at the church right now. They house about 50 people, men, women, families, and so forth. And but that, like I said, that's temporary until the determinations made on the rezoning and on the special land use. But the staff report is quite detailed, and we'll really get into that unless you have any comments. But what it all comes down to is that it's a very good location for a shelter. It's on, I think everybody knows where this is, where ML King splits the north and south routes of ML King split, and then to the south there's St. Joseph Highway, and then right below that the freeway and so forth. So this doesn't directly adjoin any residential properties. And these are fast-moving lanes of traffic, but it's close enough. It's in close enough proximity to the downtown and to government services in the area to help people transition out of homelessness. And so it's a very good location for it, in our opinion. From just a general planning and zoning standpoint, it makes sense, and so we're recommending that it be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Before we move into questions, Pastor Craig, did you like to say anything?
Is it on? Good. Huh? Oh, gotcha. Good evening. I'm Kenny Craig, pastor of the Union Baptist Church. Is it on? So now, can you hear me now? It's not on.
Lights on. Oh, the lights on. Jason, the lights on. The light's on. My mic is working. We should really get a new city hall. Why don't we, this will be a good, yeah, go for it.
All right, good evening. I'm Kenny Craig, senior pastor of the Union Mission Baptist Church. Just to give a little bit of context to what has happened here, we were approached by, I think Susan Cancro from Advent House made a request to the Mayor's Interfaith Council, and Luciana Solis gathered a group of pastors together for some conversations about how can we help families that's dealing with homelessness. Now, it was presented to us as that there are 47 children that Advent House was currently working with who could not find housing, and they were sleeping in cars. And so the challenge was, or the question before us was, how can we expect babies, children to sleep in cars and then to go to school the next day and to learn? And so those group of pastors met. We were presented with criteria. I think our church fortunately met those criteria. And so we set about figuring out how to operate and let me be clear, a temporary shelter targeting specifically just families. And I want the council to know we are not trying to get into the shelter business. We are here solely in an emergency situation to target these babies who are sleeping in cars. And so I know there's a little bit of pushback from someone in the community. But again, we're not trying to become a shelter or a permanent residence for the homeless. But what we are concerned about is an opportunity was presented to us. How can we help these families get out of these cars, at least during these extreme cold sessions that we're in? And so the church answered what I call the clarion call. And so we're here today to try to help meet that need. When these temporary temperatures go back down, hopefully by April, we're out of the shelter business again. So the purpose of getting this permit was so that they could sleep. It does no good to bring babies inside of the facility and then say stay up. So we really wanted to make this be something that can benefit these families who are dealing with these issues. And so that's how and why we're here.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Council President, and thanks for being here. I appreciate you trying to address the needs of our unhoused. I did see that the Planning Commission voted 4-3 to recommend this approval. Susan or Raleigh, could you explain why the 3 people did not support this that are on the Planning Commission, what their concerns may be?
No, this was actually a unanimous.
Can I have you?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Unless I'm mistaken, I believe that this was a unanimous, I'm sorry.
The rezone was unanimous. The SLU was 4-3, if I remember correctly.
I don't believe so, because one was, they were connected to it. I'm sorry, there was a split vote on the data center, but not on this one.
So I was present, actually, if you'll take my answer. Will that work? Sure. Okay, so I think there was some discussion about perhaps some conditions to be applied, and there was some desire from some members of the Planning Commission to take a little bit more time on that, but the rezone went through unanimously, and then when the SLU came up, or vice versa, it was one or the other. I think it was the SLU which had the 4-3 vote. They were hoping to do, some of those folks were hoping to take a little bit more time, come back and do it next month with some conditions. It is within council's purview to add those conditions as well, so the majority moved it forward.
Thank you.
That is correct, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, President Cost. Can you confirm, I know you mentioned during code blue times or significant cold weather. So is this just going to be temporary for winter seasons, or what about even our summer seasons? Is this also going to be applicable with the zoning, or is it going to end?
I can at least say from the consideration before council, that would be a permanent request. So if council approves the rezoning and then the special land use under that zoning, the church would be able to operate a shelter at any time they so choose. In terms of hours of operation, time of the year, and so forth, I would defer that back to Pastor Craig and his leadership. They would get to determine that choice.
Pastor Craig, have you and the remaining pastors that have communicated, do you have any future planning on also accommodating those unhoused in the summertime as well, or just not yet?
Well, we've certainly not considered summer. The request came specifically during this cold time, and we are operating not quite strictly by the code blue, because I think that entails 25 degrees or lower. We're actually believe that anything below 32 is too cold for a child to be in the car. So regardless of whether we're in code blue, our space will be available for warming for families anytime it's below freezing. And in terms of summer operations, we've not had any conversations, because at this point it's not been necessary. And prior to this, it has never been a question in the summer, just these winter months. So while I will not say we won't, we certainly have not had conversations to consider summer. Yep.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, so and I'm trying to understand, so I guess I'm confused with regard to what happened at the Planning Commission. If I was a member of that body, I think I'd be more concerned with the rezone of the entire property as opposed to an SLU that allows for a specific use. So I guess my question is for Susan, under the D2 designation, what else could potentially be allowed to take place on this parcel of land?
Nothing that would be objectionable at that location. Any type of, all the uses that are permitted in the core downtown, under the current zoning right now. And some uses that would still have to come before you for a special instrument, like the shelter facility. It does allow a few quasi-industrial, very light type industrial uses, not like manufacturing or anything like that, but some lighter uses. But it was an unusual vote that they would vote unanimously for the rezoning, but split vote on the special use. But like President Spatafor said, some of the members wanted to consider applying some special conditions to it, which the city has the ability to do. The council ultimately has the ability to apply conditions to it, as long as they're in keeping with as long as they're germane to. Or intended to make sure that the use stays in compliance with the criteria set forth in the ordinance that's used to evaluate special interest. And that's all laid out in detail in the staff report. I also wanted to point out that the applications for both the rezoning, the signed applications for the rezoning and the special interest are in your packet. So we have received those, and along with the required fees, so that's all in order.
Thank you so much. And in terms of the SLU and Pastor Kenny Craig, let me first say we appreciate you working to meet an undeniable need in our community. Thank you so much. And I know what your intent is. I'm just curious now about process. In terms of the SLU, because we're approving this for the entire parcel, my understanding in this situation, the operations are actually being housed within the church. Would that allow an applicant to move forward and actually build a standalone facility somewhere on the property?
No. You may recall, Councilmember, because I know that you were on council back several years ago when there was a situation where a building was constructed following the special instrument, and there's some controversy over whether the special instrument allows for the use, and then you can expand the facility. So council included in the ordinance at that time that that any expansion of a new building or anything like that would have to come back to council for a special instrument. So no, this is to allow for a sheltered care facility in the existing church building.
Incredible. And then the only other thing, Pastor, when we talk about, so there was something in the staff report that made me think that in terms of the people that are actually being serviced at this temporary shelter, that they had to be in some way either a congregant or connected to a congregant. Is that the case, or is that not the case?
Absolutely not the case. In fact, the families we have served are not members or not connected to anyone. So it's open to the public. If you're a family and you're in a car and it is cold, our doors are open to you. Yep.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussein. Any other questions? Guys, can we turn the mics down just a little bit? All right. Seeing no further questions, Councilmember Hussein, or Vice President Palavanagu.
Thank you, President Spatafor. I move the resolution to set a public hearing on Z-1-2026, 500 South Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, rezoning from DT1 Downtown Edge to DT2 Urban Flex, and that public hearing be set for Monday, February 23rd, 2026 at 7 p.m. right here in our City Council chambers.
That is a proper motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item G, Vice President Palavanagu.
Thank you. I'd like to move the resolution to set a public hearing on SLU-1-2026 special land use permit for 500 South Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to allow for a sheltered care facility in the DT-2 Urban Flex. And for that public hearing to be held on Monday, February 23rd, 2026 at 7 p.m.
That is a proper motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to the exciting part of the evening, we will see the City of Lansing's annual audit for the fiscal year ending 6/30/2025. With us, we have Tyler Baker from Maynard Casterison. Tyler, from our external auditor. I don't know what those are. Oh, no. And then I just want to point out, folks, you have a hard copy in front of you, but it is the same thing that was in your digital packet that was sent out earlier.
Well, good evening. Bill Tucker from Maynard Casterison. Tonight I have with me Tyler Baker as well. So tonight we are going to go over the audited financial statements for June 30th, 2025. I'll start just by walking through the information that was handed out to you tonight, and then obviously you had it in your packets as well. So we'll just go briefly through that information before we get into the audit presentation itself. So I'll just kind of go through and hold up some of the documents for you. The large bound report that is in front of you, also within your packets, is the audited financial statements for June 30th, 2025. Within this document, you'll find all the necessary financial statements and note disclosures to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's all in this large document for you. We did have a couple loose letters for you as well. I'll kind of go ahead and just hold those up and describe those to you. The first letter that I'm going to hold up is on Maynard Casterison letterhead. This one does not have a title at the top of it. This is what we consider to be our board communication letter. A majority of this letter is boilerplate language, does go through and address some of the more significant estimates within the financial statements for such things as useful life of capital assets is a significant estimate. So it kind of goes through and describes that to you on that very first page. As you turn to the second page of that letter, there are different headings towards the middle and the bottom of that page related to difficulties encountered in performing an audit, disagreements with management. I just let you know on both of those, there were none of those that occurred during the current year. And then there also is a section there related to corrected and uncorrected misstatements. So that is kind of described within that component there for you as well. So that's kind of the purpose of that letter, is just kind of that formal communication on some of those issues within the statements. The last document that we had for you, this is also the loose letter. Title at the top is the Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control. That is in our audit presentation outline, so we'll go page by page by page through that with that document in a little bit as well. The last document that we have for you was our audit presentation outline. So we've taken pages out of the financial statements, included a couple graphs and charts as well for you, and also have that independent auditor's report in there. So we'll go page by page by page through this document with you tonight. All right, so the very first page that we have in our audit presentation outline is an overview of the independent auditor's report. The independent auditor's report is on pages 13 through 15 of those bound financial statements. The purpose of an audit is to provide an opinion as to the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's not to detect fraud. It's not to give you an opinion on your internal controls. Within the independent auditor's reports, we're providing our opinion on your financial statements. We're actually giving our opinion on the 9 opinion units of the city. Those 9 opinion units are the government activities, the business type activities, the aggregate discretely presented component units, each major fund, in which there's 5 major funds in the current year, the general fund, the state and federal grant fund, the public safety capital project fund, the sewage disposal system fund, and the municipal parking fund. And then our last opinion unit is the aggregate remaining fund information. We are providing unmodified or clean opinions on all 9 of those opinion units. And an unmodified clean opinion is the best opinion you can receive on your financial statements, meaning that everything is presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Moving on to the next page that we have in the audit presentation outline is Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting that the city received from the Government Finance Officers Association for the year ended June 30th, 2024. So that is in the audit, the annual comprehensive financial report. That is a page within there. And again, that has been submitted to the GFOA for that Certificate of Excellence again in 2025. Moving on from there, our next page that we have for you is page 29 and 30 of the financial statements. Page 29 and 30 is your statement of net position. Your statement of net position is a snapshot of your assets, deferred outflows resources, liabilities, deferred inflows resources, and net position at June 30th, 2025. This statement is presented on the full accrual basis of accounting. It would include your capital assets, your long-term obligations, and also your net OPEB liability and pension liabilities, which are highlighted at the top of page 30 for you. The reason that I've highlighted those 2 numbers on this page is because I do have details of both of those on the next 2 pages that I wanted to cover with you. So I just kind of wanted to set that up related to these large liabilities that are shown on your statement of net position. So total net pension liability, the total number there is about $359 million, and your net other post-employment benefits liability is approximately $184 million. We'll go over the details of those on the next 2 pages. So the next page that you're going to turn to relates to your defined benefit pension plan. The city of Lansing does have 2 separate pension plans. One on page 123 is your employees' retirement system, and the very next page is your police and fire retirement system. So starting with that employee retirement system on page 123, if we're looking at that far left column, 4th number up from the bottom, your net pension liability for your employee retirement system is $131 million. And the next number down tells us how well that plan is funded. So that is currently funded at 57.26%. You can see the fluctuations of that over the last 10 years. In particular, looking back to 2024 to 2025, you do see that increased about 5% compared to the previous year. One thing that I do like to talk about with all of our communities is your plan compared to others within the state and where you stand. So at 57%, you are below the average. So the statewide average for pension plans is about 77% funded, just to give you a point of reference on that funding. Similar thing for your police and fire retirement system on the next page. Again, looking at that far left column, you do see net pension liability of $228 million, and that's funded at approximately 59% funded at June 30th. The next two pages that we have for you relate to your other post-employment benefits liability. So this is a trend over the last 8 years on these pages, 9 years, I'm sorry. So again, looking at that far left column, your employee retirement system, other post-employment benefits, your net OPEB liability, fourth number up from the bottom, is approximately $31 million, and that plan is funded at 64%. You can see the trends from last year to this year, going from 51 to 64 over those last year. Again, kind of looking back to, talking about these compared to others within the state, the average across the state for other post-employment benefit plans is 79%. We do see a lot that are over 100% funded and a lot that are still kind of not funded at all. So it's kind of taking the average across the state, getting up to 79%. And the last page to talk about your other post-employment benefits is your police and fire system. This is page 135. That fund or that plan currently has a net OPEB liability of just over 144 million, and that is funded at 35% funded. Again, looking at the trend from last year, 28 up to 35 in the current year. So from there, unless there's any questions before I turn it over to Tyler. Okay, Tyler's going to move on to the next page. Thank you.
What we're going to talk about next is the balance sheet for the governmental fund, specifically the general fund, which is that left highlighted column. As Bill has been talking about over the last few pages, items of long-term nature. For these specific governmental funds, items of long-term nature such as capital assets or debt payments would be expensed in these funds rather than included on the balance sheet, as these are reported on the modified accrual basis of accounting. A couple items to talk through here for the general fund. Total assets were just over 53.5 million. And again, this is a snapshot, so this is one specific day, being 6/30 of 25. Prior year, total assets were 65.3 million, or a decrease of 11.7 million. As we'll note, a large portion of this is due to a decrease in the general fund's fund balance, as we'll note on the subsequent page, as well as a decrease of timing of liabilities, as in total liabilities, just down about middle of the page, was just over 16.3 million as of 6/30, which was down from 19.9 million dollars in the prior year. So some timing of invoices and payables, which also causes the decrease in cash for that decrease in assets, as noted earlier. At the bottom, you can see highlighted fund balances as of 6/30 for a total fund balance of just under $30 million as of 6/30 of 25. As a percentage of total expenditures, available fund balance, which would be your assigned and unassigned, of just over 21 million is approximately 11.4% of operating expenditures, which is down from 20% in the prior year. The next page, which is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So for the fiscal year of 25, this shows your revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, specifically for the general fund. Total revenues, highlighted about a third of the way down, were just under 170 million, or up approximately 2.9 million, or 1.8% from the prior year, with the majority of that increase being increase in income taxes from 24 to 25. And then half of the way down, you can see total expenditures for the general fund at approximately 185 million. This is up 29 million from the prior year, or approximately 18%. Majority of this is additional contributions to the Fringe Benefit Internal Service Fund, some of which being to cover for additional expenditures in the prior year, making that fund whole in the current year, as well as additional contributions made in the current year. Approximately 21 million of that 29 increase is due to those contributions, as well as an increase in wages of approximately 7%, or 3.8 million from the prior year. Results in the current year, then highlighted at the bottom there, is a decrease in fund balance of 10.7 million from a total fund balance of 40.6 to just under 30 million. The next few pages we have are some trends and allocations of revenues and expenditures. So this first page is a 5-year trend for the general fund of revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. 3 out of the last 5 years, the general fund saw revenues that exceeded expenditures. And then you can see that far right column being the current year, moving from 2021 on the left through to 2025. So 21, 23, and 24 had revenues slightly more than expenditures, adding to the fund balance, and then you had the use in the current year, as we noted in the prior slides. The next 2 pages are specific for fiscal year 2025, and this first one just shows kind of where the revenue sources come from specifically for the general fund. The 2 items of note would be on the right side of that pie chart, being the blue in that top right being property taxes and the red being income taxes. As you can see, those are by far the 2 largest funding sources for the general fund, making up approximately 57%, which, as we mentioned earlier, overall is consistent with the previous year, and those 2 being your largest sources is consistent as well with the prior year. The next page is expenditures and where those at the function level are expended for your general fund. The red at the bottom, consistent with previous years, the largest expenditure for the general fund being public safety expenditures at approximately 53% in the current year. And then that top right column again being general government at approximately 20%. There were some small fluctuations from year to year, but overall those 2 categories remained your 2 largest expenditures from the department level. As Bill mentioned earlier, in regards to the independent auditor's report on internal controls over financial reporting, these next 3 pages are the pages that he was referencing. And I'm not going to read word for word for you because that would take too long, but at the bottom of page 1, what this is items through our audit process. If we are aware or become aware of findings that would be required to be reported, they are noted in here. And so we will go through those starting on page 2. Is a material weakness for material journal entries, finding 2025-001. This is consistent with previous years, with the main item being just significant journal entries that were required throughout the audit process. That's noted in further detail there, but that is consistent with the previous year. The one below highlighted, 3/4 of the way down, finding 2025-002, timeliness of bank reconciliations. This is new from in the current year compared to the prior year, and this is due to timeliness of the bank reconciliations as it pertains to when we come out for final, and the timeliness of final audit work to when the bank reconciliations were completed and performed. Again, further detail in there. And then the third finding being on page 3, under the compliance in regards to unfavorable budget variances. This is consistent with the previous years as well, and that is fully laid out in the notes in the financial statements as well for those as the budgets are approved at the activity level. Those are noted for those specific activities that were over budget is detailed in the notes to the financial statements, but it further describes the reasoning why for the finding in as a compliance finding. I do have, and maybe I'll touch base on this quick before any questions. With the bound reports, you should have this one-page graph. We were asked to touch base briefly on the LEPFA audit process and just some key highlights on that, so I'll just spend 1 second here doing that. Similar to what we talked about with the revenues, expenditures, and fund balance is what this, or excuse me, net position for LEPFA. Overall, in 2025, compared to 2024, LEPFA saw an increase of approximately 2% in operating revenues, a decrease in operating expenses of 6%, and then related to grants that they received, through intergovernmental non-operating grants. Non-operating revenues increased approximately $900,000, or for an increase in net position in the current year for LEPFA of $4.3 million, or approximately 47% of operating expenses. So you can see that trend overall. Contributions specifically for subsidy decreased from the city to LEPFA. And so from 24 to 25 as well. So just a brief kind of trend for expenditures. A lot of the expenditures over the last couple, 3 years have been repair and maintenance and improvement over the last couple years, which is specific to what that non-operating grant was related to, which has caused that increase from last year to this year.
Questions or
I know that was
comments?
a lot. Any questions?
That's right. Questions from the body? All right, well, you did it, so thank you very much.
If you have any questions in the future, feel free to reach out.
We appreciate it. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next item, which is the annual comprehensive financial report for FY 24-25. And I see Crystal Thomas and Charles Randall here from Finance. And Jake Brower. The floor is yours.
Good evening. How's that? Okay. Good evening again. I first want to just acknowledge the team's effort on the annual comprehensive financial report. We had 2 key people retire. So that's why you have both myself and Charles Randall now representing finance as the finance director, myself, and Charles H. Randall as the controller. We also had a new system that this was the first time that we went through the audit using the system. And I just want to acknowledge the team for, they worked tirelessly trying to make sure that we would meet the audit deadline because it was not an easy feat. But we were able to accomplish that. You heard from our auditors, so now we just have the team assembled. We have Jake, of course, as our budget director as well. And so we're going to turn it over to Jake, and then Charles and I will be here for any questions that you have specifically about anything that Jake's not able to respond to. Thank you. Okay.
Excellent. Pleasure to be before you again. My name is Jake Brower, Chief Strategy Officer, also serving as Budget Director. One of the items that I think that we're particularly proud of in this audit is the improvement we've made year over year as it relates to our unfunded liabilities. So our unfunded pension liability decreased from $378 million down to $360 million. Our total healthcare liabilities went down from $209 million to $184.8 million. This is a much improved state from where it was a few years ago, and is partially due to the attention that this council and the administration has taken towards responsibly paying for employees' benefits and really addressing this long-term cost. And so as we look to our audit, our fund balance is approximately pretty much sitting at 12% of this year's operating expenditures. We're going to be taking a look at the overall revenues. I can give you a brief synopsis of where this takes us going forward. Overall, we're sitting at property taxes that are remaining fairly stable. Looking forward into the future, we're seeing about a 2.7% Headley cap on the rate of property tax increases for properties that are not uncapped or otherwise additions and deletions. Our income taxes are looking fairly strong compared to our projections, which were fairly conservative as we took a look at new reports we're getting out of our Department of Treasury. Overall, we're getting improved confidence in our ability to project this, and we'll be incorporating that into our proposed budget adjustment. Was looking at getting that to you, if possible, for this meeting, but it'll probably be the next meeting that will incorporate these changes. We're looking at the state, which had its consensus revenue estimating conference, where they are projecting continued slow growth of revenues at the state level, but we still have to see the full effects of the change in gas tax from sales tax to completely towards roads. And so we'll be looking at both sides of that equation of the loss in revenue towards our general fund, general purpose side of our budget, and the improved revenues on the other side of our roads budget that will hopefully go towards making the roads, major and minor, of Lansing much improved. And so beyond that, we have our Board of Water and Light return on equity, which early reports as of this year seem to be well on track with where they hope to be as far as their own budget goes. And of course, this year we have a guaranteed 6% of their operating revenues towards the city of Lansing. But yeah, if you have any questions about the audit itself, I'll be glad to answer anything on my side, or if you have the questions on the finance department side, we're grateful to have you here and grateful to serve the city of Lansing.
Questions from the body? I have a couple questions, maybe not entirely related to this, but to the external audit. For a number of years, I've sat up here and we've seen findings come from our external auditors, particularly related to bank reconciliations and journal entries. I think the budget variances are new. Is that a new finding this year, or is that a recurring one?
No, that is a recurring one. I think we had spoken to the Charter Commission about one possible solution to this being that adjusting our audit to aggregate the responsibility of our funds to the full department level, where we break it out into personnel and operating, which just means we have a harder target to hit than other communities. However, that's something that potentially, with a lot of gumption and resources, we may be able to surmount in the future, and would be our gold standard target to reach that point where we accurately catch it. So I know there's a number of adjustments we went through throughout the audit process that made it particularly difficult this year, but we'll be continually improving our processes. And I think despite the initial growing pains of learning BSNA and initially setting up the system, we're starting to see some of the dividends down the line in process improvements and standardizing the way that we do business that will hopefully contribute towards being much better in this regard.
Believe it or not, I understood that, so thank you, Jake. I do want to then ask, so we think the journal entries and the bank reconciliations, as well as the variances, will probably maybe be addressed with better knowledge and working of the new finance system?
Yes, so that's definitely our goal and target.
Crystal?
One of the other things that we're starting to deep dive into is some of our larger departments, because they need the support as far as what we're actually asking of them, so that we can get their receipts and also their billing more timely. So that creates some of the larger journal entries that are happening later if we're having a system in place, training them better, then those things can be done more timely. The bank reconciliations is actually a new one. That one is attributed a lot to us being new in the role. It had to do with getting access to the retirement bank statements. And the system works because you just don't give anybody access, but it took a lot of time for us to get access to those different funds. And so we were a little bit behind the 8 ball on that, trying to get those reconciled at the last minute.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you. Seeing none, that's it for that. Thank you very much. The next item is item J, and just a quick announcement for those in the audience and those watching at home on television, we are still in the committee of the whole, so we're still in the committee of the whole meeting. Item J, Act 7, 2025, the sale of property, Lot 49, the 200 blocks South Cedar Street, and conditional rezoning, Z2, 2025, 220 South Larch Street, and the 3 adjoining parcels. We have with us folks. Yes, Mark.
Sorry, real quick. There was a technical issue with the staff report getting into Laserfish. I have hard copies I'm going to hand out right now.
Okay, thank you. So we have Sue Satchwick and Raleigh Van Fossen, and I think we have Dick Peffley here if there's some Board of Water and Light questions, but right now we're going to have the staff report reviewed from the sale and rezone perspective.
Well, since we did introductions at the last item, I'll forgive that for a matter of time, and I'll defer to Sue Satchwick, who's going to go over.
Hold on a sec, Raleigh. The TV cut out. Not to interrupt your cadence there. Okay. We're back. Go ahead, Raleigh.
So as Mark's handing out, there's 2 staff reports from you. Both of these items went before the Planning Commission last year. There's 2 questions before council, a conditional rezoning, and staff will go through you the difference between that and a straight rezoning, as well as the sale of city property. Ultimately, you can't do one without the other. Tonight's just a presentation as we were invited by leadership from the staff end. For folks watching here today in person and on TV, my understanding is the applicant, Deep Green Technologies, will be before you giving a presentation on February 9th. Sue?
Thank you. Yes, this involves 4 parcels, 4 contiguous parcels that are bounded by Kalamazoo Street to the south, North Larch Street to the east, and South Larch Street to the east, and South Cedar Street to the west. And the proposal, as Raleigh just said, is to rezone the properties from the existing zoning, which is DT3 Urban Core, that's the downtown zoning, to Industrial 1. It's the city's only industrial zoning district, but it's a conditional zoning wherein the use of the property would be strictly limited to a data center. So it couldn't be, there's a lot of uses that would be, otherwise if it was just a straight rezoning to industrial uses that would be permitted as by right that we would not want to see at this location, such as open storage yards and self-storage facilities and things of that nature. If I could refer you to the last page in the packet here, at least it's the last page in my packet. I'm not sure what you don't have the same place. Okay, all right. Okay, so what's being proposed is a brick building that would be located up to the property line, or within 5 feet or so of the property lines at the southeast corner of the site. That would be by Larch and Kalamazoo Street. The site would be fenced. There would be some outdoor equipment and so forth, but that would be well screened and so forth. And there would be some parking to the north. While this project, the zoning of as I already said, is a downtown zoning, does not comply with the mixed-use center land use being advanced in the master plan, it does bring the site completely into compliance with the placemaking standards of the master plan and of the zoning ordinance. So right now, as you all know, we've got a parking lot here, a very underutilized parking lot that is a drain on the city's finances. There's not enough use of this there's very little use of this parking lot, yet it has to be maintained, has to be plowed, it has to be salted, it has to be, potholes filled. It takes a lot of maintenance of the city, but because there's very little use of it, it doesn't support itself. So it's and having a parking lot, just from general planning standpoint, having a parking lot on a corner lot, especially on major streets, is just simply not good planning. Yeah, especially one it's unattractive, it's underutilized, etc. So what we're doing is that we would have now a nice brick building, and there's the applicant, when they do their presentation, will show you the rendering of it. A attractive brick building that would be located up to the front property line. There'd be a small park on the other corner at the southwest corner of the site at Cedar and Kalamazoo Street, be available to the public, seating area and so forth. The rest of it would be screened by an attractive fence, wrought iron, brick, attractive fence with a little bit of parking. Right now, There's no use of the site other than parking. We're talking about 15 jobs. 15 well-paying jobs is nothing to sneeze at. That's, we're going from nothing to 15. We do not believe that this area is surrounded by, we got Wendy's to the south. Other than that, it's surrounded on all three sides by industrial and quasi-industrial uses, most of which are not going anywhere. You got the Boulder Water and Light plant to the east. You've got the Boulder Water and Light solar arrays facility to the north, as well as some, and then you've got auto repair facilities and so forth, also to the north and to the east, and like I said, Wendy's to the south. This area, South Cedar Street heading south, is a 3-lane roadway. North Larch Street is a 4-lane roadway, and Kalamazoo is 5 lanes, 2 in each direction, and plus a center turn lane. All fast-moving traffic in this area. There is nothing in this area that these are all automobile-oriented uses, or uses that don't draw any traffic, like the solar array. So it's not, and it's separated from the core downtown by the river. And so we do not feel that this is it's not a pedestrian-friendly area. It's just simply not. You can drive down there during the day on a nice, warm summer day, and you're not going to be able to, there's not pedestrians walking around, okay, because it doesn't lend itself to that because of the traffic pattern in the area. So this property has been a parking lot for a long time. Over the years, the city has sent out RFPs or RFQs, requests for proposals, for people to develop the site. And there's been a little bit of interest in it, but never anything that came to fruition because of the environment in the area. Okay, and so it doesn't seem like this is really a realistic location for somebody to come along and build like a mixed-use development here, commercial and residential, because that would rely on pedestrian traffic coming to the area, and it just, like I said, it's not a pedestrian-friendly environment. So from a master plan standpoint, and that's what we look at primarily when we talk about rezonings, is that this brings the site much further into compliance with the ordinance than what it is right now. And again, we're limiting it to the data center so that we don't have to worry about industrial uses that would be objectionable in this location. The other, as Raleigh mentioned, is the Act 33 case, which is to sell the property. A city-owned property would be to sell it to Deep Green. And as Raleigh mentioned also, one request is no good without the other. They're both necessary in order for the project to move forward. And I guess I'll stop right then, and unless there are any questions, but just to say that staff, the planning office staff, is recommending approval of both requests.
Thank you very much, Sue and Raleigh. We have a couple members with questions or comments. Councilmember Cost.
Thank you. Susan, you had said that this property wouldn't be ideal for housing with the master plan. Don't we have similar housing in a similar situation just a few blocks north of there that was built in the last 4 years?
I would say that's completely, you're talking about on the north.
Stadium North Lofts.
North of the stadium,
Mm-hmm.
of the stadium, yeah. No, I would say that's completely different environment, completely. Number one.
Isn't it traffic, though, the same on both sides, in fact, surrounded by, I think it's 5 lanes on Saginaw there that's 40 miles an hour, and then Cedar, and then Larch?
Excellent question, yes. No,
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I understand. No, I would say that it's a completely different environment. That area along Saginaw over there is populated. Pedestrians is a very pedestrian-friendly. Traffic moves slower. The presence of pedestrians causes traffic to slow down. There's been studies that have shown that. Also, having buildings up to the front property line instead of having these wide open expanses also causes traffic to slow down. When people hit south of Michigan Avenue, those speeds increase. They just do. And when people are coming north on Larch Street, when they get closer to Michigan Avenue, they slow down. That's what happened. And the same thing going from Kalamazoo Street into the core downtown, heading west. The location of the buildings, the types of buildings, the types of uses in those areas that draw pedestrians. You've got the stadium district, or the stadium itself. You've got the stadium, you've got bars, you've got restaurants, you've got specialty retail stores. In that area, they're all focused towards pedestrians. You don't have transmission shops and solar arrays. They're further. They're adjacent to that, but they're further away. Now, we do have a new, fairly new, a residential complex north of the stadium. But again, there's a residential apartment building directly across Cedar Street to its west along the river. It's been well established a long time. On the other side, you've got some business. There's businesses with the buildings right up to the front property line, and then you've got the stadium. It kind of just progresses that location. This is not the same situation over here. I would submit that traffic is a lot lower than that. The types of business there are pedestrian oriented as opposed to automobile oriented. Hence that there's not a large presence of parking lots. People rely. You go down there, you rely on street parking. City parking lots, city ramps, and stuff like that. And you walk to your location. I would say that it's a completely different situation. I didn't say I just don't believe that this location is ideal by any stretch or that would be desirable to a developer to put like a mixed-use building or a residential complex on the site that we're talking about tonight. There's plenty of open. The idea too is to have businesses that complement each other. Somebody goes to a restaurant, they go next door, and they go to a retail shop. They have an office downtown. They go out, they go to lunch, along Washington Avenue. There's plenty of open space in the downtown for enclosed businesses where those could be filled in order to continue, to help the vibrancy of the downtown, as opposed to taking a site that's separated from the downtown by a fair distance here. I just don't think the developer would find that as desirable as they would to develop in the core downtown.
So you don't think the site would be ideal for housing? I mean, I walk that area because, I live on the east side. And from that point, you've got a Wendy's across the street you can walk to, 2 river trail accesses right there, a grocery store around the corner, a gym, State of Fitness is right there. So I was just trying to understand why it wouldn't be ideal for housing, because it seems like what you just described is around that building. Yeah, there's some mechanic shops, things like that, but it is fairly close walking distance to a lot of amenities.
I would say, Councilman, it's not that we don't desire housing at this parcel or other parcels in and around our downtown. It says our staff report includes that we haven't seen those proposals come to us, even through an RFP process. Sure. We did see a housing provider come, but that proposal ultimately on their part fell through. And so our responsibility in this question is we have had a developer, that is Deep Green Technologies, approach the city requesting it. So our job is to then staff that request and see if that current request makes sense. Currently, there's not another proposal or a housing proposal specific alongside this for us to compare the two.
Okay, and then Raleigh, do you know, I spoke with the Lugnuts, and that's their staff parking, so I assume that they pay us to park there every year, their staff, or?
Their staff do not pay per se. There is an agreement with the Lugnuts or ultimately their ownership in terms of what the city is to provide for parking, not just at that location, but there's other parking assets that were required. To your point, yes, Lot 49 and 49A primarily for the Lugnuts, per the agreement, has been for their staff. My understanding from comments from Zach, Lugnut's general manager, is they have no issue relocating the staff to Lot 37 and Lot 21, which for reference, for those not familiar, are the 2 lots underneath the Lansing Center. And so we did ask that question, as well as parking services and the Lansing Center in general, because they also rent the lot from us for major events. And again, the feedback we had with them is that they believe there are other locations within our downtown that they'll be able to provide and find that parking.
Okay, and then the last thing, Susan, you mentioned this a couple times, this is for either one of you. I am confused. I've seen renderings, and then during the web touch point that they had, where they were taking questions, they said that they didn't have any designs drawn up. But then tonight, you referenced several times brick and all kind. Are there drawings? Do we know what this thing looks like?
There is a rendering that we've received. It's not in the printout you've gotten before, but technical difficulties, it will be in the official packet for referral. I know that the Saturday meeting they held at the Lansing Center with the at-large candidates, they had that rendering on display.
Okay.
I'm happy tomorrow to follow up with council and share the version we have. I'm certain from
If
them
you could.
listening tonight as well that they'll make sure you have that version for your February 9th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that. I guess I was confused a little bit. When we actually acquired lot 49 in 1990 and then 49A in 2010, my understanding was that we truly believed that that location was ripe for not just redevelopment, but I think quote unquote prominent redevelopment, and that we really wanted to maintain site control until we were able to bring certain products across the goal line that would really help to kind of bridge, the stadium district to other parts of downtown, et cetera. And I would think and certainly understand some of the market realities of the 90s and Great Recession of 2010, but I would think that as we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in investment southern edge of downtown, I would think that marketing conditions have changed just a bit, and that we might want to be a little bit more aggressive marketing that. Nobody here believes this is the highest and best use for that particular property. Is that correct? I guess that's what I'm trying to get to.
We're certainly not saying that in terms of our staff report. Based on the application we've received from the provider, the administration is supportive of this and believes at this time that is the best use case presented to the city.
In terms of the purchase price of $1.4 million, has there been a recent independent appraisal of that? How did we get to the $1.4 million?
That is the previous appraisal on file. I would have to look in my files to see the year in which it was done and get that back to you.
Please do.
Hasn't been done within the last 12 years. Do you remember the appraisal date?
No, I don't.
Or not 12 years, 12 months. I can follow up with that information when the last appraisal was on file.
Any potential sale between the city and Deep Green? It doesn't. In the staff report, there was some environmental discussed. There was a number of $50,000 in terms of remediation. The sale would be as is. The city won't be on the hook for any of that.
Correct.
Okay. But do we anticipate some type of incentive ask from this particular applicant in the future?
We, at least the department I have the privilege of overseeing, have not received any incentive requests or any indication of an incentive request from the city of Lansing.
I think to my earlier point, maybe this is for Greg, in terms of the importance of this particular location and the fact that we originally had wanted to have some control of future development, has there been discussion, I don't even know if we can do this, discussion about potential reversion rights within the sale agreement, that if this did not come across the goal line, that the ownership would actually revert back to the city of Lansing so we could keep control?
Yes, and I'm trying to get to the actual sale agreement. I know all this is in Laserfish. I know that the staff report, the appraisal was from 2023. And then I'm scrolling, it's a 117-page document, which is why I suspect it may not be in this council packet, but hold on. There we go.
Greg, you said this in Laserfish. Does that mean we'll get it eventually?
Yeah, I think it came through one of the packets.
Oh, was it the last packet?
Because it was referred in 2025.
Okay.
So,
They said the hearing at the last meeting, so they had it.
okay. I know that it was all in the receipt, when it was received all in December, in any event. Hold on.
Councilmember Hussein, while he's searching for your answers, can we move on? And we'll come back.
Sure. Can I ask a few others?
Yep, absolutely.
In terms of, so we know city council can't impose conditions when we talk about a conditional rezone. And certainly understand the conditions that are being suggested. Were there other conditions at any point through negotiations discussed? And I think of, community benefit agreements and timeline guarantees and things of that nature that maybe didn't make it to the end line?
That wouldn't normally be associated with with conditions for rezoning. Conditions for rezoning should be restricted to the uses restricting the uses, or things such as, the actual development of the site, like additional landscaping or something of that nature. But no, because we don't have any way of regulating that or enforcing it or monitoring it.
In terms of, and maybe this is for Raleigh, in terms of, obviously we're thinking long-term community benefit, right? In terms of data centers, particularly this size, with this load of the 24 megawatts, and capacity to service, as an example, advanced tech companies, what type of, and it might be indirect or it might be direct, secondary investment, what type of investment do we typically see these kind of usher in other communities? Again, 24 megawatts. And is this an economic, in your opinion, can this be an economic development driver for that area?
Sure. Outside maybe the purview of what our staff reports do or don't cover, so speaking maybe just in general purposes, I would say yes. I'm interested in what I've heard in some of their community presentations, both at the Geyer Center last year, both this last Saturday, is that they've been able to show in some of their efforts before and where they've done these before elsewhere, but also just in general, the conversation is that there's some secondary and tertiary type developments that are likely to come, both from, I think, an immediate customer of theirs, but certainly from some surrounding efforts in terms of the fact that we have this. I think, though, a lot of that's left to be seen as well, and for this to come forward. So I do see this as an economic development driver for the community. I'm interested to see additionally what those will be, assuming this gets supported. I can say directly what they've offered immediately as a benefit to the community, and I think you're going to hear more from them on their presentation, is the investment in some of our local programming, like the Board Water and Lights Pennies for Power. I know there's certainly an estimated return on investment to the city's budget and general fund in general. I know you have pending legislation, perhaps directing a percentage and some of that to certain things like housing efforts and so forth. So in general, I do see this as an economic development benefit to the city, and excited to see what more it can bring.
How are we doing, Greg?
I think I found it.
Okay.
There we go. So, yes, it's on page 9, section 19E. Purchaser agrees that in the event construction of the project has not commenced, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, within 2 years from the date of closing, seller, city, shall have the right but not the obligation within 90 days of the outside commencement deadline to purchase the property back from seller for an amount equal to the purchase price. So essentially, we have the ability to purchase back if it does not happen.
Project hasn't commenced.
Correct. No, if the project has not commenced, which is defined as vertical. Yes, correct. Sorry, commenced.
Okay, so I guess, so I'm curious what happens in the event that they do commence development and halfway through, financing dries up, they go belly up, what does the restoration of that site look like?
So,
and ownership of that particular property?
Sure, and I'll just say that commencement is defined here as actual vertical construction, and part of that was based on the fact that generally a project of this size, once they get to the point of actually putting down a foundation and putting steel vertically, it's going to get done by a bank or them. It's possible that it does. I understand. It's possible that it does not. But that was part of the back and forth discussion, is how to define how to define commencement, because we were specific to not want commencement to be simply moving soil on the property, based on how these projects have worked out in the past. In that case, you would be talking about a situation where they get halfway through building a structure, don't finish. I guess we would have a partially built thing that could only be a data center at that point.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarez-Martinez.
Yes, so considering that what we had in the packet was no materials provided at this time, I have a lot of questions. So just to kind of give some background to some folks here, I'm a social scientist, and so in my professional training, I've learned to do things a certain way, and I see that right now I'm in like a data gathering kind of stage. And so, like I said, I have lots and lots of questions. I have pages of questions, but I'll try to be concise. So my understanding is that the zoning commission denied the application at their December 2nd, 2025 meeting. Is that accurate?
They recommended denial by a split vote of the rezoning. They, as I recall, they unanimously, or at least it was, there may be a one dissenting vote, but they did recommend approval of the sale. There was quite a bit of discussion between the two, once they voted on the rezoning, we had quite a bit of discussion, and then some people who voted against rezoning also ended up voting for the sale, and like I said, one's no good without the other, so.
So then technically the vote for the sale doesn't really, it won't go without the rezoning, so.
They won't have any reason to purchase the property unless they have the rezoning.
And I just want to clarify too, regardless of how the planning commission votes on matters, we're still required to forward them to council. So while yes, their voice is certainly important and matters greatly to us as the staff who staff that board, even if they vote down an item, we still are required to send it on to city council for consideration.
They're advisory.
Yep, and so with the understanding that, we appoint folks to the Planning and Zoning Commission because of their expertise and other, involvement. It's also my understanding that it's custom and practice for the Planning Commission to provide the City Council notice of their decision and provide their reasons for, in this case, denial of the deep green rezoning request. But I've not seen a report stating exactly why they decided to deny that.
Unfortunately, for your sake, the planning commission met prior to you taking office, and so those
that's why I haven't seen
materials
that
and meeting minutes would have been referred to the city council meeting on December 15th to be
Okay.
on file. I will happily tomorrow forward those direct to you.
Yeah, that would be great. Let's see. Page 3 of the staff report is called Environmental Impact, and it's written there that the proposed data center will have no negative impacts on the physical environment, as there will be very little, if any, increase in impervious surface. With respect to the environment in general, the purpose of the data center is to accelerate the decarbonization of heat for the purpose of energy-efficient computerization intended to protect and improve the environment. And I took this from previous, the Act 33 report, because we didn't have this new one that you gave us, so I don't know if it's exactly the same wording. But do you recall that that's written in there? Yep. And so, can you identify for me, please, each and every study you conducted to support that statement that you wrote?
We look at it in terms of, if it's a raw site and you're going to be developing it, then, but I mean, we're going from impervious surface to impervious surface. So that's what it's supposed to look like. With regard to the building itself and the concerns about contamination and so forth, there are stringent codes every step of the way at the city level, at the state level, at the federal level that regulate everything from, the construction of the building, taking into consideration what they do in there, and with regard to handling contamination and with regard to the electricity and the power that's generated by this, every step of the way there's permits that have to be obtained. These codes are written by experts in their fields. I don't mean to be, I hope this doesn't sound sarcastic, because that's not how I mean it. Please believe that, but we don't allow a building to be constructed, for a certain use and then sit back and hope that it doesn't, blow up or catch fire or, contaminate our groundwater and stuff like that. These codes are in place to ensure that that doesn't happen. That's why the plans are reviewed, the architectural plans are reviewed, the permits are issued, and they're inspected every step of the way. And that's not just plans by the city, that's plans from the state, the Department of Environmental Energy and Great Lakes Energy, I'm sorry, I always forget what EAGLE stands for, but then there's FEMA regulations and so forth. So there's a lot of eyes on this.
Okay, so there were no studies that you reviewed or did in
No,
order
ma'am.
to write that statement? Okay.
No.
So, are there any
Folks,
expert reports?
sorry to interrupt. We could just keep demonstrations out of the meeting tonight. Thank you.
Can you identify any expert report that you've read that is specific to the proposed deep green data center?
Again,
Expert reports
if
about
I
the-
may,
Yeah.
our reports are specific to the
zoning?
zoning
Okay.
question and the sale of city property.
Sure.
Those perhaps may be better suited questions for the applicant directly.
Okay. So let's see, I have a couple of more over here. Did you ever look at the submission made by Deep Green Technologies Ltd. in seeking approval to build the 5.4 megawatt data center that is on the Deep Green England webpage?
Again, our presentation
But
tonight
yeah,
is specific.
this is related to the zoning, because in that report, they actually provided 99 documents in connection with what they were asking, including environmental impact statements, traffic studies, things that I think are very important to the zoning of this project.
Sure. There certainly is a, further up on that page, an impact on vehicular and pedestrian traffic study, our traffic report that we comment on. In terms of the specific document you're referencing, no, that was not reviewed or submitted to us as a function of their rezoning or Act 33 application.
Okay, so then I take it that you have not read the Bradford Data Center Operational TM54 Energy Report then?
I am not familiar with what you're mentioning.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Martinez.
Hi, how are you? You know, I'm new here, so I have to ask a question about what conditional rezoning means, and this is my only question. I think to reference some of the questions that Councilmember Hussein was asking, right? Like if they broke ground and what was considered to be commenced, right, in the project, let's say like it froze or it stopped or something happened, right? Can you just explain to, with your experience, I know the depth of what it means to go for beyond the conditional rezoning? Like what happens if it does not become a data center?
Then it would, if somebody came along with another proposal, they would need to rezone it to what would be appropriate to accommodate that. You would have a chance to evaluate that. And now there is something in the ordinance, we've never been faced with it because conditional zonings are pretty rare. But there is something in the ordinance that under certain conditions that it would revert back to the previous zoning designation. That has to do with the time frame of, how it can't just sit there forever as a conditional zoning. There is a time frame set forth in the statute for how soon that the construction has to commence or work meaningfully towards completion, the use get established, or it does revert back to the previous zoning designation.
Yeah, so it sounds like that would be a preventative measure then,
Yes.
to make it a conditional rezone.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. Councilmember Palavagnu.
Thank you, President Spatafor. One quick question I have about the noise pollution issue, and this isn't, I'm not sure who this will go to, if it's legal or for you. I recall that there's a different threshold for industrial noise and how that's gauged within the noise ordinance. Does that comport with what the Board of Water and Light building across the street already adheres to? What is the difference within that ordinance for residential versus industrial?
I can't speak to the Board of Water and Light, but I can, generally speaking, industrial properties are exempt from most of the provisions of the noise ordinance, the criminal noise ordinance.
Okay.
So activity on industrial property is exempt, and this, comes from going back in time when we had multiple GM plants, and they couldn't be necessarily subject, or at least they did not want to be subject to the general provisions of the noise ordinance for industrial activity.
Okay, thank you. I have one more.
Sure.
Maybe a few more questions. Because we have the presence of Mr. Peffley, representing Board of Water and Light, here with us this evening, I do have a question related to the rates. And I don't believe this is a new question for you. I'm sure you've received this question in the lead up to this meeting from several community members. You feel free to take a seat.
Yeah,
if
whichever
you'd
one
like.
you want.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here tonight. There is a major concern within the community that a data center of this type, using even this closed loop system and the way it runs, will raise rates throughout the city for all of the residential customers. And I'd like to know how you plan to address that.
Sure, that's a very legitimate concern, not with just data centers, but any large customer that wants to come into your service territory. The board has over a dozen rates, and those rates are set by cost of service. So a customer that comes in applies, and they're put in a rate that is appropriate for that class. And the board has the ability, those rates are established, the board has the ability to add to the contract protections so that we have a startup company or a big customer that we have concerns, we put protections in for that. We've done that with other clients that have come in. There's been some growing operations that were coming in that, that was going to be big business for the area. Most of those are gone now, and the board was held harmless on those. There's also been large manufacturing sites that have recently built that have panned out very good for us. So in this case, with Deep Green, we have told them that any infrastructure that has to be put in place is paid for up front. Line extensions, water extensions. So the rate that they will get for the first, they're going to need to draw 24 megawatts. 8 megawatts will come off the grid. That's a published rate. It's right online. It's any customer that wants to draw 8 megawatts complies with that rate, and that rate covers the cost. And then there'll be 16 megawatts of fuel cell production on site. And at this point, we told them that they would have to pay for the entire generating facility, which they've agreed to do. We will own and operate it ultimately, but they're paying all the capital costs. So if they were to leave the Board of Water and Light, the customers would be left with new infrastructure, just waiting for another tenant then. There'd be no stranded cost. And I see other companies that when you're, lack of better words, whining and dining to get customers in, you offer them rates and you offer them incentives. Quite frankly, our phone rings off the hook because of reliability. We don't offer those. It's a list price. If you want to pay our rates, if you want to pay for the infrastructure up front, we're happy to serve. But we're not giving any incentives to attract them. We are excited about this project, though, because of multiple reasons. One is the potential reduction in natural gas that we will use to supply heat to our hot water customers, currently steam customers. That's a big reduction for us. It's a 25% reduction in natural gas usage, about 1,100,000 a year. You won't get there overnight. It's about 5 to 6 years, not because of Deep Green, because the Board of Light is just embarking on converting from steam to hot water. Now, the total reduction in the BWL's gas portfolio is not 25% because the 8 megawatts that we generate from the grid, it does use natural gas. It's 21% renewable, but the balance of that is fossil fuel. So there is still an overall reduction in our portfolio, but I want to be very clear that the 25% reduction is in the hot water side of the utility. So that cost, your bill for the Board of Water and Light has multiple line items, but one is a commodity charge and one is a fuel cost adjustment. Commodity is set by the Board of Commissioners, and that's fixed. The fuel charge is flexible so that I wouldn't have to have a rate hearing every month when gas prices change or fuel costs change. And unfortunately, typically the fuel cost is rising. And in this case, the fuel cost is going to drop. That's refunded almost immediately in the customer's bills. When it materializes to the $1.1 million in the savings, that will go directly back to the customers. The BWL can't use that for operations or capital improvements. That's a fuel cost. Conversely, if it's going up, we pass it on. So the hot water utility customers will see that drop as it materializes as we build the system out. So we're not concerned at all about the contract structure to protect any customer class, residential obviously included, that if this deal doesn't pan out, we will see new infrastructure that's bought and paid for.
Thank you. I just have maybe one or two more questions. I know we talked about, meeting the energy standards.
Yes.
How does this affect your goal to your clean energy goals that you plan to meet by, I think it was 2030? 30?
There-
Is that the benchmark?
There's multiple goals, well, not goals, requirements. There's clean energy of 50% by there's renewable energy of 50% by 2030, and then there's clean energy by 2040. They're different goals. Our hopes are that the plant that will be, the facility that's going to be built on site will help our clean energy goals for us, because there is not a fuel cell plant built in Michigan right now. There are 2 of them up and running, to my knowledge, on the eastern seaboard. They have both been designated by their governing bodies as clean energy. So our intent is to get this plant, try to move the needle to get this considered clean energy. That's 16 megawatts. That'd go a long way towards our clean energy goals. So that's, I'm not going to say it's an uphill lift, but since there's no plant built in Michigan, it doesn't have a designation. I have talked to a couple senators already, just broaching that, and they're open to listen. And so it's our intent is, if this deal comes to fruition, is to push to get this plant designated as clean energy. It uses natural gas, but it doesn't burn natural gas. It chemically breaks it down and through a cathode anode, and it goes through. The byproduct is heat and electricity. So there's no typical combustion elements like SOx, NOx, sulfur, mercury content like that you see from some burning of natural gas. So it's cleaner. It's not renewable, and we're not trying for that designation, and it's not completely emission-free. There's CO2, but we are looking down the road on how to address that as well. So the big win is that we need to find any way we can, as our load's increasing, the company is growing, that we can bring on different types of clean energy and renewable. It's getting very, very hard to site renewable. Our last 2 major projects have been shut down by local jurisdiction deciding they don't want renewables in their townships, and that's typically where you have to build the large arrays. So it's an uphill battle. This could be a step in the right direction for clean energy. Again, that's separate from renewable energy.
Thank you. And then one last question. As Board of Water and Light, I mean, you represent the company. As you were engaging with Deep Green and learning more about their company, did you, on your end, find any independent reports to verify the sustainability or, these other, I don't want to just call them promises, or claims, but what they've said they will in fact do and what they're saying the impact will be on the environment? How have you been able to verify that?
We did not do a real deep dive because we left that for the subject matter experts, but we looked into it from a different venue. Our water plant's across the street, and that's the drinking water. For 40 million gallons of water a day can be pumped to our facility. So we wanted to make sure that they didn't have anything on site that would negatively affect that, and we did a detailed report there. As far as any emissions or noise, we didn't look at that. Our intent was to supply them with the energy, the water, and make sure our customers held harmless, and that our water plant had no negative chance for impact from anything they're doing on site. And there was after lengthy discussions with them, we got the assurances that we wanted, and if we see any deviation from that, then we'll put a stop to the contract.
Vice President Pell, if I may, just want to clarify to a previous point. Our cursory review is of similar state in terms of how we define environmental impact. And so while there may be other reports and so forth, happy to look at those further. But much of this, to Mr. Peffley's comments, will happen if and after council approves this request, when the developer submits for not only formal site plan, which again for yourself and others on council and those watching, goes through our department, the fire marshal's office, Dick's team over at the Board of Water and Light, our public service team, CATA comments on that, other city departments, as well as the architectural plan review. So that's a definition and a submittal by the contractor of what in fact they are building to detail. And then we review that from a state building construction code requirement and lens. And so that includes our building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing inspectors who are state licensed to do what they do in terms of that review, as well as members of the public service team who look at the wastewater and any impacts, to Dick's point, as it may affect any of our groundwater and drinking water. So while I respect the questions, I think a lot of that on our end, from a city end, and detailed subject matter expertise we'll review, would happen if this project gets reviewed as we get those specifics from the developer.
Okay, next up, we have Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, since we have dig down in the well, I guess concerns have been noise and rate hikes, and I mean the list goes on and on.
Yes.
But one of the concerns has certainly been the amount of water, right, that this particular facility will use. Do you have do we anticipate, and I don't even know if the measurement is correct in terms of gallons, but is it tens of thousands? Is it millions in terms of annual usage? That's number one. Number two, I'm assuming, because this is, or at least what's being contemplated, is a closed loop glycol system with glycol being added, that there will still have to be a replacement schedule of some sort. So what do we anticipate the replacement schedule to be? And then maybe my last question is how will that water that has had that coolant added, essentially, how will that be treated when it's replaced?
Okay, you might have to remind me of question 2 and 3 as I go on here. But question 1, as far as noise, there's
no, not noise. I'm talking specifically water.
Oh, water.
For you.
Okay. They have given us their water loads, and I've seen a design for the piping size. So I can tell you that the line that feeds them is equivalent to the line at a fast food restaurant. So it's not a lot of water usage. It's minimal. I would be happy to send council what a restaurant uses in gallons for you. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it is minimal water usage. I can't speak to their glycol system, but I can speak to ours. So typically it's 5 to 7 years. You can sweeten it up by filtering it and continue to use it, or you can send it off to an approved site to have it rejuvenated or disposed of properly. I'm assuming they might be doing the same thing because glycol systems are very common in large buildings, so that it maintains closed loop. We also did ask them as recent as today if their system leaked, and do they have money set aside, if there's any environmental damage that would leak onto our property, and they said they had insurance in place to do that. So that was something we were concerned about, and we have similar policies in place for our facilities. So we do expect minimal water usage, and I know by the service we gave them, they're not going to be able to draw millions of gallons of water. The service just won't provide that much. The size of the piping is limited there.
I guess I have one more question.
Sure.
In terms of dissipation of heat, how does that happen in the summer months when it's not necessarily needed for heating buildings downtown?
Sure. First of all, their total heat capture off of their facility, as well as the fuel cell plant, probably about a third of the energy the board requires. So we'll still have to build facilities as we transition to hot water. But in the summer, the heat load does drop off, but there's still a lot of heat. The industrial loads at some of the commercial customers, they use steam in their process, the automotive assembly plants. The hotels and restaurants use it for their domestic hot water. So there's still load. There's still enough load for us to capture the load that's coming off of theirs. If they were supplying 100% of our needs, then there would have to be some kind of venting come in, exhaust through cooling towers or something. But from the numbers they have given us, so we're relying on their designs, that we should be able to use all of their heat. And the majority of the heat, 90% of it, is generated from the fuel cell plant, and we will be in control of that. So if we have a time when there's excess heat, we can always back that plant down and use one of our other generating sources.
Councilmember Navarez-Martinez, then Councilmember Garza.
Yes, so you mentioned earlier that you would go through a process and then figure out what rate class they would go into, and that's how much they would pay. Do you anticipate that that's less than what Lansing residents pay for their home?
Well, they've already applied like any business does for a rate. They haven't asked for any rate deduction because of high volume or anything, so they went into a rate, and the rate that they are in, our rates range from 6 cents per kilowatt to 14, depending on what rate class you're in. They fall by policy into an 8-cent rate, and that recoups all the cost for the customers in that class, and it doesn't allow any cross-subsidy so that they're not negatively impeding another customer class or vice versa. So, yeah, they qualify for that rate right now, and they've applied for it. The fuel cell rate, since they will ultimately pay for the entire plant, we will be discussing with them because they technically could own the plant, and that was their plan, was to own it, but we talked to them and said that if, it's our preference to own it because we're getting the heat from it and we want to manage our system, so they've agreed to that.
Okay. So my understanding is that BWL intends to make a $1.1 or $1.2 million equity payment to the city once the data center would be operational. Is that what, in like 3-4 years? How long do you anticipate that to take?
So the 1.1 or $1 million, I've seen a couple figures. 1.1 million we've been using for fuel savings, but I think that the number I saw to the city was a million, but we're in the same ballpark. What that comes from is the city receives 6% of our gross income. We've budgeted out in the next 4 to 5 years that will ramp up. It'll ramp up slow with construction, and they'll draw 8 megawatts off the grid to start with as we build a fuel cell. But in a fairly short time frame, we would expect to be to that load. They did, those numbers are based on a draw of 24 megawatts. If they use slightly less, it could be adjusted. But if they deviate too far into those numbers, there's penalties. So that wouldn't be a good business stance for them to say, we want 24 megawatts, and we base the 6% of the cost of that revenue going onto the city, and then they only draw 10 megawatts. That would really drive their cost per kilowatt up because of the penalties that would be invoked on that.
Would the penalties make up to the amount that they were supposed to do in the first place, or no?
It would make up to the Board of Water and Light, but not to the city.
Okay.
Because the city gets a return on the gross. But, yeah, I guess simple answer there.
Okay. So, did you read the Bradford Data Center Operational TM54 Energy Report that they turned in over there?
I did not. I did do a lot of studying of their other facilities because this is the biggest one they've ever built. So we wanted to make sure concerns were there. They've done a swimming pool, sports complex, a few other things that appear to be successful. But this is a whole different league they were getting into. So that's why we put some very stringent requirements. Now, our contract with them is down to dotting I's and crossing T's. We have substantial agreements, but we haven't signed anything yet, and obviously it's contingent on a move forward. But we feel that that their business plan is sound, but we will reference that report. But we did study their operation. I believe they have 11 or 12 of them in the UK, in the area and we looked at most of those, and this is their flagship one coming to the U.S., and it will be their largest one, is what they've told us to date.
Okay. Are you aware that the Deep Green LLC did not exist before 6 months ago?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's not a concern?
No, it's a conglomeration that put funding together. It's called Octopus is the one that has all the deep pockets behind it. We're making sure that the Board of Water and Light is we won't have any problems getting our funding if something runs amok here. Pretty much is paid for up front, and so is the plant. So if one of these LLCs would go bankrupt, we have the asset paid for.
Okay. And I'm glad that you mentioned Octopus because I think there's been a lot of conversation trying to, pitch this as a different kind of data center.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know who Octopus is, it is essentially owned by the Elon Musk of the UK. And so while I think that folks in town would be concerned if Elon Musk came to town to try and build a data center, we're being told that this one's different, but I would suggest that maybe it's not that different. Okay, well, I think for now, those are my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we got Councilmember Garza and.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Raleigh, Susan, for being here. Mr. Peffley, this may be directed to you, but it could be to Raleigh. I know that, Mr. Peffley, you mentioned that this glycol system is a common, it's a closed loop system, it's a common system. Could you, for the public, could you explain, or Raleigh, other buildings that have a similar closed loop glycol system in the area?
Sure, our power plant in Delta Township has a closed loop glycol system. It's used inverse of what Deep Green does. We have to heat the air up before it goes into the jet engines in the winter. So we use the glycol and we heat it, and then that heat's extracted through the air into the gas turbines that are there, where Deep Green will be doing the opposite. They want to take the heat off, and we take it from there. But it's similar in our situation to your car. You know, it's the glycol is circulating. That's what's in your car. It's circulating through the car engine, and then the air goes across the radiator to cool it, and the engine heats it up. So that's how ours works at the facility in Delta Township on Canal Road, the DEP plant.
Okay, all right, thank you. But now, am I wrong to say that like hospitals and schools and other facilities that have central air are similar to a closed loop glycol system?
We have a lot of customers in that class that use glycol systems.
All right, okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Everyone's averting their eyes, so it seems like we're all set. So I want to thank you all for being here this evening. Ms. Preffley, thank you.
You're welcome.
Susan and Raleigh, thank you. We are on to, for those of you who are just tuning in or joining us still, we are still in the Committee of the Whole meeting. We are on the last item. It is going to be the Human Resources and Communities. Before I go on to that, I just want to remind folks, we have on the 9th of February, we will have the actual public hearing on this proposal, as well as representatives from the company to present before the public hearing. So at council, at the actual city council meeting. So that'll be the next opportunity for input and discussion on this item. The next item is the Human Resources and Community Services update on moving forward with individuals at Causeway Bay. So many council members had asked for an update on the status of the individuals being housed at Causeway Bay and the plans from the department moving forward. So we have with us several members of the HRCS department. And I know Director Coleman was here but had to scoot out to the Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting, so we appreciate you all for stepping in this evening. And if you could, for the new folks, introduce yourselves and then dive into your presentation.
There we go. There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much for allowing us to be here tonight to provide a snapshot of progress of those individuals formerly residing on the private property close to Diedrich Park who are now being temporarily housed at the Causeway Bay Hotel. My name is Kimberly Gillespie. I am Community Liaison and Critical Service Coordinator for HRCS. I have a couple of my colleagues with me who will tell you who they are.
I am Bethany Royston. I am new to the HRCS team, and I'm serving as a contract manager for special projects.
And I'm Joe McDonald, Housing Ombudsman.
All right. So when this was presented to HRCS, it was determined that HRCS would work with Causeway Bay on the use of their facility for those formerly residing at the encampment. It was agreed upon that OCA would coordinate transportation and agencies would continue to work on housing plans and services. Following the court's intervention in mid-December 25, local agencies came together to determine what camp occupants needed and which agency would best fulfill those needs. Agencies provided storage units, storage totes, transportation of personal items from the campsite to the storage facility, and transportation of camp occupants from the campsite to the hotel. As agencies continue to provide emergency case management, HRCS was tasked with serving a support role in coordination of hotel registration, payment invoicing, and helping to troubleshoot any problems that could occur. Following the court's intervention, HRCS began with agencies and hotel staff providing 16 hotel rooms. 26 camp residents physically checked into those rooms. The following Monday, any remaining identified camp occupants were sheltered in the hotel. To ensure that camp residents make progress towards their housing goals, HRCS and other supporting agencies have relied on service coordination in 3 key areas: on-site services, interagency coordination, and basic needs support. Relative to on-site services, a minimum of 3 service providers, including HRCS, are actively engaging with residents on site every Tuesday and Thursday. Examples of those services may include applying for ID cards or birth certificates. The second area is interagency coordination. Participating agencies meet biweekly to review residents' progress. Progress is tracked on a client-by-client basis to ensure accountability and movement toward housing goals. Our most recent interagency meeting took place on Wednesday, January 21st. The final area related to our service coordination and basic needs support. We are helping to coordinate efforts to assist occupants who may lack the capacity to support themselves in meeting their basic needs. An example of basic needs may include providing meals, harm reduction supports like sharps containers and Narcan, and the provision of toiletries and clothing. Additional supporting agencies are working behind the scenes to ensure that any other basic needs are also being met. Just like with anything we do as human beings, oftentimes challenges and barriers can present themselves. Just as so, this work is also not without challenges. One that was mentioned this evening already, time. As of today, we have 25 rooms occupied by 49 former camp residents. HRCS primary objective remains consistent: to provide short-term stabilization while actively supporting the agencies that are facilitating those transitions into shelter, permanent supportive housing, or permanent housing. This hotel placement is not intended to be indefinite, but rather a time-limited intervention designed to create safety, structure, and forward movement toward housing. Funds provided were initially allocated to support shelter for a period of 6 weeks. There's that time constraint again. In spite and despite, HRCS remains committed to a balanced approach, one that centers dignity and care while also emphasizing accountability, progress, and responsible use of funds. And that is our update at this time.
Thank you. Do we have questions or comments from members of the council? Councilmember Martinez.
Hi, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm new here, so I'm just getting my training wheels going. I have a few questions for you. So you said, I didn't catch all the numbers, but I think you said as of now you have 25 rooms with 49 former residents. That's correct?
That is correct.
And then originally it was 26 former residents, so the number increased. Is that correct?
Actually, the number has decreased. Because,
Oh.
Yeah, it has decreased. It was initially, we had 57
Okay.
occupants, and we had 60 rooms.
Okay, thank you. I have 5 questions in total, so I'll try to be brief so my colleagues can ask their questions as well. You said a piece of the case management that you guys are offering is basic needs, right? And then supplying or helping people get ID cards and birth certificates?
So that is not our particular effort in the process.
Okay.
We are simply providing hoteling.
Okay,
There are
gotcha.
8 other agencies that are providing the case management.
I'm gonna be a real pain. Would you
No, you're
mind
not a real
listing
pain.
some of
That's
those
okay.
agencies, just so I know? Thank you so much.
Yep, so some of those agencies are Punk with Lunch,
Okay.
the HARA, the Tenant Resource Center, help me out, guys. Ingham County Health Department, how could I forget? Aben House, HARA's a part of Aben House, trying to think.
But those are the organizations that are helping?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha,
Yes, ma'am.
gotcha. Okay, thank you. Okay, 3 more. Do you know, either if it's, the number is with those agencies or it's something you would keep in your department, how many of the folks that have stayed in the hotels have secured housing vouchers yet or are in the process of doing so?
So my understanding is that there are 2 that have secured housing vouchers, but they are still awaiting placement.
Okay.
Being able to utilize those vouchers. And what was the second part of that question? I apologize.
It was a long
Okay,
question. You
okay,
got it.
I'm sorry.
2 more, okay. For those that are, I guess, could you say that like the rest of our folks are trying to secure housing by the end of this month, or they're in process to do so, or?
So that's an ongoing task. I
Okay.
mean, the goal is always to secure housing, but you have to understand there's so many barriers in obtaining housing. A lot of the barriers that you all may not be privy to because those individuals, which are those agencies that are doing the work, the boots on the ground, they're seeing all the different things behind the scenes that become barriers. So it's, again, that's one of the things with the time constraint, because we only have so much time to act, and you can do the best that you can with what you have. So.
That was my last question, was just because I'm new and I don't know the background of necessarily those logistics, is how were the 6 weeks, like how is that time crunch decided, or like that time frame decided?
So I'm going to defer that to OCA.
Okay.
I will defer it back to the department. My understanding is that there was funding that was previously budgeted for hoteling purposes, and the amount of money that was available in that fund would cover approximately 6 weeks based on the estimated number of people and the estimated number of rooms that people could cohabitate in.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarez Martinez.
Yes, so thank you very much for being here. You all do really difficult work, and we really appreciate it. How are we selecting who gets a room? Like, are we using a prioritizing tool like the VI SPDAT or something that kind of places folks, their vulnerability, and that's how we're placing them? How are we doing that?
Okay, are you asking how people got placed in the hotel?
Yes, how are we choosing who of the folks that have reached out to us that they need a hotel, how do we choose who goes in?
So, according to the court order, it was to be those folks that were identified that were staying there.
At the encampment?
Yes.
My understanding was that there were more than 49 people staying at the encampment.
We had 57, I think, was the initial people that went
And
into the hotel.
the what is it, 8 people, did they say they didn't want to go into the hotel, or do we just not know where they are? Or?
No, they went in.
Okay, and now
Yeah,
they're out?
Yes.
Did they go into housing, or did they get kicked out, or what happened?
Some of those that were occupying hotel rooms were kicked out for various reasons.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so none of those 7 or 8 people went into permanent housing or any other kind of housing that we know of then?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, alrighty, and so when it comes to housing resources, other than the vouchers, which are very difficult to get and very difficult to place in a lot of instances, are there any other housing resources that we are providing to people?
So,
I think you all would agree with me that the only thing that solves homelessness is housing, right?
Yes.
Not programming.
yes. So, the HARA, which is the Housing Assessment Resource Agency, they're taking the lead on helping to place folks into permanent housing, permanent supportive housing, whatever kind of programming that we could get them into. And it's folks are at various stages of being able to qualify for those, and they're ranked as far as what who's going to get a priority to move into housing.
How are they ranked?
That is through the coordinated entry program.
Okay, so through the coordinated entry, they are doing something like the VI SPDAT or another tool that they're using for
Yes.
prioritizing vulnerability?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Another similar program. Don't think it's yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Hussein, followed by Councilmember Palawanoglu.
So just to be clear, in terms of the 57 physical check-ins at the outset of this, and I understand that 8 have, let me ask a question with regard to the 8 too. Even for non-compliance of rules, and obviously, these people have been displaced from that location, did we do anything to scaffold them on their way out? Is there any follow-up with those individuals? What does that look like?
So if I can just reiterate, we are not responsible for the case management and for the ongoing services to the client. We're just basically doing the hoteling. And what I can say is those that were removed from the hotel were removed because they weren't complying with hotel rules, which for a number of reasons. And so that's why they were removed. Now, we wouldn't have direct access to them, but those agencies that are working directly with them behind the scenes, they would have access to them and could report to you where they are and what their status is.
Oh, I thought you were leaning in to add something, Joe, no?
No.
Okay. So to be clear, though, not one person has actually been housed in permanent housing, right, with regard to this group. So what's the effort look like to go beyond the 6 weeks? Is there a concerted effort to extend their time there?
Well, as a positive, having everybody under one roof really does help to be able to coordinate services. And so part of during the holidays, we missed out on a couple weeks to really dig in and to get a lot of, hands-on. So the money that the city had allocated, will probably run out pretty soon. So on the positive side, the Ingham County Housing Trust Fund Committee, I'm a member of that committee. We voted for $76,000 to go towards this effort, and so we'll take that, for as long as we can, as long as we can get it.
And with regard to, the number of folks that are being sheltered at this particular hotel, what is that bias in terms of time? Do we know?
I haven't figured out, calculated that. I don't know, Kim, have you? How long would that, $76,000?
Approximately 2 months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Palavanaglou, followed by Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. Thanks, Councilman Hussein, because that was getting to the heart of a question I had. Can you give us a figure or a dollar amount of what it costs per day or week that the city has been paying? How do you, how is the payment being made? Was it just one amount for a specific amount of time? Are you paying weekly? How does that work?
Yeah, so we are basically being invoiced weekly. And so the rooms are at a rate of $60 per night. We have 2 occupants per room. At this point, it has cost us approximately $38,000.
That's total, right? And so what date does city funding end for
So
this?
it varies depending upon when occupants were entered into the hotel. The earliest date would be January 29th. The latest date would be February 4th.
Okay, and based on what we've just heard, it sounds like there is some additional funding that is coming from Ingham County that could get us maybe another 8 weeks, or have these folks stay sheltered at Causeway Bay for approximately 8 more weeks. And I know you're not in charge of the services. It's been said a few times, right? Like, it is specifically the hoteling, and I appreciate that. I'm just wondering past the next 8 weeks, because I'll tell you, I spoke with some of the folks there, and I'm no expert in their experience or in your experience, but when I hear someone who said, I filled out every form, I filled out every application, and now I just have to wait, that means something. So if they're not able to wait in the Causeway Bay Hotel after that 8 weeks, do we have any idea of what that next step looks like for these folks?
Go ahead, you want it?
Thank you, May I? Speaking to the housing case management piece of it specifically, if there's an individual that has been entered out of the encampment into this program, is actively participating in all of their case management, they're not dodging any other services, they're being respectful, and they're not being, kicked out for any other reason, we are absolutely willing to continue to work. If it's a matter of a couple weeks here and there, got pulled for the voucher, have to wait for this. If they're being active, they're also selected for jobs at the hotel as well. So they're able to kind of take that initiative and contribute to their own success in the housing case management process.
But that wouldn't necessarily be the case for every single person who's
Not
staying
for
there
every single
today.
individual, no.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, President Spatafor. My question, I think, more pertains to OCA. To my understanding, after connecting with many of the various agencies that are helping these the unhoused individuals, there was a consent agreement that was in play, and I guess there has been communication that that the agencies that were advocating for the Dietrich Park encampment individuals weren't aware of what all was part of this consent agreement as far as time frame, transportation, housing assistance for those who have ADA limitations or whatnot, medical assistance and so forth. Can you share, if anything, about that or bring us up to speed if there's any information regarding the consent agreement throughout the process of moving the Dietrich encampment individuals to the Causeway Bay?
Yes. I mean, I will try to answer the question that I think you're asking. There is a consent agreement that has been entered by the court. The parties to the consent agreement were the parties that were in the lawsuit, which is the city and the property owner, J&J Properties. The final details of that weren't finalized until I think there was a court date. I know it was on a Wednesday. And that was the point at which it was final and submitted to the court, and the court executed it. The consent agreement contained timelines, and it was originally, it was communicated after, and I'll just back up. Nothing was broadcast or communicated prior to the court signing that order because it was not a final order, and it would not have controlled either the city or J&J to do any of the things that then happened after the judge entered the consent order. So that was the point at which, and all the timelines that are in that consent order, and they're in the document, are working back from the idea that it would start on that Wednesday. The initial goal and intent, and it was stated there and communicated there, is that the city would be helping with transportation and that hoteling would be available several days after the entry of that order. So originally it was the intent and goal that things would start happening, I think the Monday or Tuesday, I think it was the 22nd, 23rd of December. And I think we were trying to look for the 23rd, but I'm working a little bit off the top of my head here, looking back in time, but I knew it was after that weekend. And that there was discussion about that. But then my understanding, and this happened very quickly, is that many people that were at the encampment wanted to move sooner than that, or I don't know, took it upon themselves to start moving much sooner than that, and people were going to the hotel as quickly as Thursday and Friday, and then over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And I know that HRCS mobilized very quickly to sort of organize and figure out everything at the hotel as quickly as possible. And I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. And then I also have another question. Thank you, Greg, for that response. You mentioned, Ms. Gillespie, about storage units from when those who were moved out of the encampments into the hotel. There has been conversation that many of their belongings were destroyed or lost in that transition. Can you speak a little bit to how the items and the personal belongings were moved from one area to the storage units?
Well, I don't want to, I'm sorry. I don't want to speculate, but my understanding was not during the transition of their items from the encampment to the storage, but when their items were left at the encampment, that's when they were destroyed, and they couldn't have access to them, and that's my understanding. But as far as the transition, that seemed to be smooth and rather seamless.
I've got no one else on my speakers list, so thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you for your work, and have a good evening. That leaves us to that's all that's left on our agenda. So it is 8:18. Let's go for a 12-minute recess and be back here at 8:30 for the city council meeting. For those of you just joining us or tuning in on TV, we are just wrapping up the committee of the whole, and we will resume city council at 8:30. We are adjourned.
Minneapolis has sparked a new wave of protests in the city and across the U.S.
We're angry, but we won't give up hope. And above all else, we are clearly unified.
Now a judge considers the legality of President Trump's anti-immigration tactics in Minnesota. Our continuing coverage on the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Listen to Morning Edition tomorrow morning from 5 until 9 here on Michigan Public. It's a great thing to love public radio. It's an even greater